They didn't apologize for doing this. They didn't bother to make up reasonable-sounding justifications for it. They just did it, exactly as the Chinese government does. These are monopolies. They have all the power. You have none. They don't have to care what you think, and they don't. This was mass censorship on a scale that America has never experienced, not in 245 years. And it's a threat to all of us. Democracies only function when there is a free exchange of information between citizens. We no longer have that. This is a dark moment. Here are the details. This morning, the New York Post published a series of emails that describe Hunter Biden's lucrative relationship with a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma, and then describe how his father, then the Vice President of the United States, intervened to help his son peddle influence. Now, we've known the outlines of this story for quite some time, but these emails add damning detail. No one appears to dispute that they're real, not even the Joe Biden campaign. You're hearing whispers tonight it's all part of a Russian disinformation campaign. If this is a hoax, it is the most complex, sophisticated hoax ever perpetrated. It doesn't seem possible. There are too many. There's too much detail. These emails came from a laptop, an Apple laptop, that was dropped off at a Delaware computer repair shop last year and then abandoned there. After a certain number of days with no payment, the shop's owner took legal possession of the laptop. He looked inside. There were tens of thousands of emails, including exchanges with representatives of foreign companies and foreign governments. The laptop apparently belonged to Hunter Biden. The shop owner was stunned by this, by the appearance of corruption, and he was afraid for his family. So late last year, he gave the laptop to the FBI. He kept a copy of the hard drive for himself, but he never heard back from the FBI. By May, he was anxious, so he made overtures to Senator Mike Lee's office and at least one conservative nonprofit. He emailed their websites, but no one responded. Finally, the man contacted Rudy Giuliani's office, and today's story is the result of that. Well, the tech monopolies instantly crushed it the moment it appeared. An executive at Facebook called Andy Stone, a former Democratic staffer, announced that his company would censor the New York Post story. As he put it, Facebook would be, quote, reducing its distribution on our platform. Twitter quickly followed suit by locking the New York Post's entire Twitter account. One of the biggest newspapers in the world banned from Twitter. Twitter then prevented its users from sharing the New York Post story, both privately and publicly. Those who tried to share it got this message, quote, your tweet couldn't be sent because this link has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially harmful. Harmful? In a separate explanation, Twitter wrote this, quote, we don't permit the use of our services to directly distribute content obtained through hacking that contains private information, may put people in physical harm or danger, or contains trade secrets. Yes, the same Twitter that just promoted a New York Times story about the president's private tax returns, obviously obtained illegally, that Twitter. And who, by the way, was hacked here? No one was hacked. Twitter never addressed that. As for, quote, trade secrets, there were none. We already knew that Hunter Biden was trading on his father's office to make $50,000 a month from the Ukrainians. In October, he admitted it.
You didn't have any extensive knowledge about natural gas or Ukraine itself, though?
No, but I think that I had as much knowledge as anybody else that was on the board, if not more.
In the list that you gave me of the reasons why you're on that board, you did not list the fact that you were the son of the vice president.
Yeah, no.
What role do you think that played?
I think that it is impossible for me to be on any of the boards that I just mentioned without saying that I'm the son of the Vice President of the United States.
Oh, thanks for acknowledging reality. So we knew the outlines. What we didn't know until today was how brazen this was. Hunter Biden didn't simply sell access to his father, the vice president, or take cash to influence American foreign policy. No, it's weirder than that. As he schemed to extract more money from Burisma, Hunter Biden didn't refer to his father as his father. He referred to Joe Biden, the vice president, as, quote, my guy. On April 13th, 2014, for example, Hunter Biden wrote this to his business partner, quote, the announcement of my guy's upcoming travel should be characterized as part of our advice and thinking, end quote. Hunter Biden added that he needed to be, quote, protected financially and wanted a long-term role with Burisma. Quote, the contract should begin now, not after the upcoming visit of my guy. That should include a retainer in the range of $25,000. It's not clear if Biden got that retainer, but we know he did get a high-paying job at Burisma. Then in May 2014, just weeks after Hunter Biden joined the board of that company, a top executive there let him know why he was being paid. Very explicitly, quote, We urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence to convey a message, signal, etc., to stop what we consider to be politically motivated actions. The executive wrote that in an email. Quote, use your influence to convey a message. What message? What does that mean? Well, another email from the same executive obtained by the New York Post, dated April 17, 2015, explains in very clear terms what it means. Quote, Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and pleasure. Oh, that's what you're not allowed to read. And you can see why Facebook and Twitter don't want to allow you to read it. If Joe Biden met with Burisma executives at the request of his son for the profit of his own family, it becomes very clear that Joe Biden's previous denials were lies. Just last year, Joe Biden was telling us he had no idea what his son was doing at Burisma.
You were the vice president running point on Ukraine. The average Joe hears that and says, that sounds fishy. What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody...
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like, when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was... there was something on its face that was wrong. There's nothing on its face that was wrong.
Nothing on its face that was wrong. That was before we saw these emails. You'll remember that back in 2018, Joe Biden explained that he got the top prosecutor in Ukraine fired. That prosecutor, Victor Shokin, said he was planning to investigate Burisma when he was stripped of his job. Here's how Joe Biden explained/bragged about how he canned Victor Shokin.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Why is the Vice President of the United States firing prosecutors in Ukraine? Pause for a moment and ask yourself that. That's bizarre behavior. It doesn't help the United States in any way. Why was he doing that? At the time, Biden's handlers denied there was anything wrong with this. They just said Shokin was corrupt, and somehow the world was benefiting by Shokin getting fired. They didn't explain how we'd benefit from that. But, of course, Joe Biden didn't do it for his son. He didn't know anything about Burisma. He didn't know what Hunter Biden was up to. No clue. Then last October, we showed you a photograph of Joe and Hunter Biden golfing with a board member at Burisma, Hunter Biden's business partner, a man called Devin Archer. The Biden campaign never explained that photograph. Our media, of course, never really followed up. Instead, just as they're now rushing to bury the New York Post story, CNN rushed into Joe Biden's defense.
The impeachment inquiry is centered on President Trump's attempts to get political dirt from Ukraine on Vice President Biden and his son Hunter. Mr. Vice President, President Trump has falsely accused your son of doing something wrong while serving on a company board in Ukraine. I want to point out there's no evidence of wrongdoing by either one of you.
A few months later, we got some sense why Anderson Cooper was so careful in the interview you just saw. In December, a voter in Iowa tried to ask Joe Biden about Burisma and his fitness for office. Joe Biden lost control of himself. He called the man fat and then challenged him to a push-up contest.
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's take the night push-ups. You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack. But look, fat, look, here's the deal.
Here's the deal. What is the deal, actually? That's a question every American, no matter what your political views, has a right to an answer.
That was Tucker Carlson last night before the new New York Post story dropped about Hunter Biden in China, referring to the big guy getting 10% of an equity in a venture fund. It appears the big guy is Joe Biden. Will George Stephanopoulos be asking a lot of questions about this tonight? He should be. We'll talk about it. 1-800-520-1234. Connection to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms.
This is Michael Medved at michaelmedved.com for Town Hall. The appointment of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Supreme Court counts as a masterstroke and easily one of the best decisions of Donald Trump's presidency. In an election season when liberals and media try to characterize conservatives as old, angry, bigoted, extreme, and lacking in empathy, Judge Barrett displays the opposite characteristics. At age 48, she's youthful, a genial consensus builder, and mother of 7, including a special needs child and 2 adopted kids from Haiti. On a court dominated for decades by Yale and Harvard graduates, she's a breath of Midwestern fresh air, beloved by her students at Notre Dame. Most importantly, she'll give new life to the originalist thinking of her mentor, Justice Antonin Scalia, in stressing what the Constitution actually says, not what Judge wanted to say. As Americans have been losing faith in public institutions, Judge Barrett can help to restore their confidence. I'm Michael Medved.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. If you're on a college campus today or have a child on campus, there's a solid chance you'll hear this. All white people are racist. You might hear this too. America is founded on white supremacy. These 2 sentences are not mere overheated emotion. They express an ideology called critical race theory, or CRT, which argues that race is a social construct made by white people. Just as race was once used to enslave and terrorize, so it is used today to keep America unequal, unfair, and hostile to minorities. The Trump administration just took symbolic and courageous action against CRT. It issued a memo to federal agencies calling for the end of the government's CRT racial sensitivity trainings, terming them divisive anti-American propaganda. Does America have real issues in its past? Yes. Have we made real progress that we must guard carefully? Also yes. The White House has led well here. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I have almost nothing to say about last night's debate. It was one of those things where I thought Mike Pence is masterful. The idea that he was able to contain himself and to respond in this measured way, no matter what Kamala Harris said, I thought that is seriously amazing to me in these passionate times in which we live. And I was in awe of his self-control. So that's all I'll say. What do you say?
Well, you know, he is a born-again Christian. He carries his faith very seriously, and I think that he represents that faith very well when he does things in public, and I thought last night was just an example of that. But there were a couple of things I was looking for, and I wanted to see if they were going to happen, and it took about 15 seconds into the debate for them to come true. One was I wanted to see how long it would take for the coronation to begin, and about 20 minutes into the debate, you already had CNN and MSNBC saying that Kamala was killing it and she was masterfully in control of the evening and so forth. And the other thing I wanted to see was, would she be the one of the two that would push the envelope with the emotional side of maybe overreaction? And it only took a few of those side-by-side shots where she's glaring at Pence while he's giving his response to whatever the question was. I mean, it wasn't like a gentle but placed smile. It was like, not only did
female
Pence,
Al Gore of color.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. 1-800-520-1234. The big story of the day is Hunter Biden's corruption. The laptop he left, according to the New York Post, at a repair shop when unclaimed and unpaid for became the possession of the repair shop's owner, who copied the hard drive. And on the hard drive are emails, which will be fed, I think, daily between now and the election. Today's big story is the amount of money Hunter Biden took out of China. And I am flabbergasted. We don't know about this until now. Quote, documents include an attorney engagement letter executed in September of 2017, in which one of Yi's, a big Chinese guy, party member, top lieutenants agreed to pay Biden a $1 million retainer for counsel to matters related to U.S. law and advice pertaining to the hiring and legal analysis of any U.S. law firm or lawyer. Now, I practiced for 33 years. I'm retired now from the active practice of law, though I'm still the general counsel of the Nixon Foundation. Will occasionally do a matter for a friend or a family member. I remain active in the California District of Columbia bars and practiced in large firms and small for 33 years. Never, ever, ever, in large firm or small, have I ever heard of $1 million engagement letter to consult on the retaining of lawyers. It's a bribe. It's a bribe. Now, Jason Miller, the head of comms at the Trump team, says that Twitter and Facebook have made this story an infinitely bigger problem for Joe Biden and permanent damage to their own brands. What I think they've done is they've made the New York Post a lot of money. I've never had the New York Post on my bookmark bar in the morning. I've always done Financial Times, Times of Israel, The Telegraph, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the New York Times. I've now added the New York Post because it appears that the New York Post is going to be the go-to people when you have a story that you don't want to have censored or killed by the left wing that controls the New York Times. So if you're in New York, you're going to go to the Post. But does it matter? It should matter. It should dominate. There are two competing town halls tonight. Donald Trump being interviewed by Savannah Guthrie at 8 o'clock. George Stephanopoulos being interviewed by, Joe Biden being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos. I remember when the DUI dropped on George W. Bush the weekend before the election in 2000. George W. Bush was enjoying a comfortable lead, 6 points until that. And what happened to him is very similar to what has happened to Cal Cunningham, who's been revealed as a cheater on his wife and perhaps a serial adulterer, at least once, we know, and maybe a violator of the Uniform Code of Military Justice in North Carolina. The numbers collapse. The numbers collapse. And it's hard to pick up on the polls because they collapse quietly and internally and nobody sees that. But I think the numbers are going to collapse on Joe Biden because this astonishing amount of money, a September 2017 $1 million retainer, may occur, I believe, after the point that Joe Biden has decided not to run for president. At that point, they may just have decided, we're just going to go for the money. So what do you think about all this? Amy Coney Barrett's going to be confirmed. She dazzled. We'll talk to the senators about that later. But what do you think about this Joe Biden story? 1-800-520-1234. What do you think about the fact that the president, well, I'll play it for you after the break. He went long on this thing. I got to check the market, though, because yesterday was a very bad day for the market. And the Dow was down 165, NASDAQ down 95, S&P down 23. Overseas this morning, everything is red by more than 2%, actually, because the coronavirus is back in Europe and there is no relief package in the United States because Nancy Pelosi is blocking it. So the market lost confidence. What did gold do? Even gold went down a little bit to 1,896. So if you've been waiting to buy gold until it dipped, now's the time. HughGold.com, HughGold.com, or visit or send or text my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747. HughGold.com. They will help you move 10 to 25% of your IRA or 401k to physical precious metals. They guard it. They secure it. It's very, very safe. Or you can buy gold direct from them. Just send your name or send my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, text it to 474747. Or go to HughGold.com, and come back here and hear what the president said about the Bidens last night in Iowa on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I'm not going to declare victory yet, Dennis, but I hope, because this is like a zombie, this Fine People hoax. It just keeps coming back from the dead. Maybe it's at least on life support now because of the big assist.
Well,
from Vice President Pence.
the lie upon the lie is Joe Biden had no interest in running for president. It was Charlottesville that convinced him he needed to run. This man has been running for president for 47 years.
Right.
He never heard of Charlottesville, and he decided to run for president. I mean, the ease with which the left lies is breathtaking.
Right. Speaking of that, last night in the debate, it was interesting. The very first lie that Kamala told, it was I think, about a minute in, literally, into the debate, and she actually used the word hoax, right? That was a lie, where she said that Donald Trump called the virus a hoax. And, of course, he never did. Even the Washington Post, by the way, conceived this. Even their fact-checker said no. Of course, he was talking about the Democratic reaction to his coronavirus handling. He said that was a hoax. He never called the virus itself a hoax. And so she used the word hoax to lie, as I said, mere seconds into the campaign, into the debate. She lied quite a bit last night. She lied about her wish to ban fracking. We have this on videotape. I mean, these people are pretty bold in their lies. But again, the most pernicious lie, the most malicious for our society, has been the Fine People hoax, and we have to continue to spread the truth.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Because when John McCain was running in 2008, he's on The View, and one of the ladies says to him, "What happens if Roe v. Wade is overturned?" And I'm at home yelling, "It goes to the states, it goes to the states. And you live in a New York state, which is very liberal, nothing's going to change." Instead, Senator McCain just went, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen, but what kind of answer is that?
The wrong answer. I mean, it's you're exactly right, and what I describe in the book One Vote Away, in the chapter on life, is for 200 years of our nation's history, laws on abortion were made at the state level, and different states had different laws. And if you wanted to change the laws on abortion, you did the same thing you did if you wanted to change any other laws, which is you tried to convince your fellow citizens your ideas were right and their ideas were wrong. Then in 1973, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, "You silly voters, you don't get to decide this anymore. We're taking this out of your hand. The American people have no ability to resolve this question." And I think that decision, more than anything, politicized the court. It's the reason we have these ugly circus confirmations now. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they support unlimited abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, partial birth abortion with no parental notification, no parental consent, and taxpayer funding for it all. Do you know, Larry, that only 9% of Americans support that radical extreme position? And yet that's what they want the court to mandate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
You've got the Speaker of the House saying something that is so telling to me. I've had a number of people text and call me and say, this 25th Amendment crap that Pelosi's pulling, this stunt, it isn't for Trump, it's for Biden. And as I think about it, and I'm listening to Nancy Pelosi's announcement, which we are just about to play for you. It's coming, I'm told, but this is just moments ago. Nancy Pelosi said, this is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters, but he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents. You mean like Joe Biden if he wins? You know 59% of Americans polled by Rasmussen a couple of months ago don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term, right? 59. You know, in that same poll, 49% of Democrats don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term. Is Nancy Pelosi setting up the 25th Amendment to remove Joe Biden so we have President Kamala Harris? You be the judge. You listen to what Nancy Pelosi said moments ago, announcing a bill on the 25th Amendment.
This is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters. But he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. The New York Post release of documents obtained from what appears to be a Hunter Biden computer, not hacked, possession by virtue of non-payment is real. It's a real thing. That's the story we're being told. It will be investigated. But meanwhile, the documents appear very authentic because they're accompanied by private pictures of Hunter Biden, which I will not discuss. But the president discussed all of this and the censorship of the story by Facebook and Twitter last night in Des Moines, cut number 18.
Pelosi, since May, she has had a bill in place, and Republicans refuse to take it up.
We're going to dip in here. He's talking about this Hunter Biden situation. Let's see what the president is saying in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa tonight.
Corrupt business dealing. And this is a big smoking gun. The newly uncovered emails reveal that a top executive from the highly questionable Ukrainian company, it's an energy company, which paid Hunter at least $50,000 a month, but it's now looking like it could be $183,000 a month. That's a lot of money. Would anybody in this audience take it? I'll take it. We'll take it. Despite the fact that he had absolutely no experience, knew nothing about energy, wrote to Hunter arranging for a meeting to meet with Vice President Joe Biden. I've been saying this for a long time with that family. The same Ukrainian energy executive even sent Hunter an email saying, quote, "We urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence." In other words, Hunter was being paid for access to his vice president father, who was specifically put in charge of Ukraine and Russia. How about the Russia hoax? It turned out that they were the ones that did the Russia hoax. It was them. No collusion. No collusion. These emails show that Biden's repeated claim that he has never spoken to Hunter about his business dealings were a complete lie. It was a total lie. He lied to you over and over because he's trying to cover up a massive pay-for-play scandal at the heart of his vice presidency, and everybody knows it. Everybody in Washington knows it. We've known it for a long time. The fact is, there was never an administration more corrupt than the Obama-Biden administration. There was never. Just weeks ago, Joe stood before the American people in a presidential debate and told you that these claims had been totally discredited and that his son did nothing wrong. But now that turns out to be a total lie. Now we can see clearly that Biden is a corrupt politician who shouldn't even be allowed to run for the presidency. I was pressing Joe Biden to tell the truth because the corrupt mainstream media right back there, all those cameras right back there, they're corrupt and they refuse to write the story. There wasn't one time in almost 4 years during my presidency, during the greatest political scandal in U.S. history, a witch hunt, a horrible, horrible, disgusting witch hunt that should never, ever happen to another presidency again, and people should pay for the crimes they committed. which turned out to be a total illegal hoax, that false and libelous stories every day, false and libelous stories, and they knew they were false too. They knew they were false. They were never taken down by Twitter or Facebook or the mainstream media, never once. Yet with Biden today, they take negative posts down almost before they even go up. They're trying to protect him. They're trying to protect Biden. They take him down. And I was just getting off that magnificent plane behind us, Air Force One. And I had heard, and I just don't know this for a fact, but they say Kayleigh McEnany. You know Kayleigh, right? Kayleigh McEnany. Good Kayleigh. She's so great. She's incredible. They closed down her account. She's the White House press secretary because she's reporting the truth. They closed down her account. So let's see what's going to happen. And did you hear the news? Bruce Orr is finally out of the Department of Justice. Bruce Orr. Him and his wonderful wife, Molly. She wrote all this stuff, and then he goes and he works at the Department of Justice, and he took it. Didn't he bring it to the FBI? The wife writes it. She gets paid a lot of money. Bruce Orr is finally out of the Department of Justice. That's good. A couple of years too late, that's all. He should be not only in the Department of Justice outbox, he should be someplace else, okay? 8 months after his alleged meeting with the Burmese executives. So this Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese, a real beautiful company. Vice President Joe Biden went to Ukraine and threatened to withhold $1 billion in aid if they did not fire the prosecutor that was investigating his son and the company that his son worked for. That's very miserable. The documents also show that before one of Joe's trips to Ukraine, Hunter emailed his business partner saying his lucrative contract should begin now. Think of that. Should begin now. Right now, it's got to begin. The whole thing is so incredible. Here's a guy. Look, let's just put it in simple language. He got thrown out of the military. That's unfortunate. He didn't have a job for a long time. His father becomes vice president, and he's making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Think of it. No, think of it. Think of it. It's like the Hillary stuff, the crooked Hillary, and it's the crooked Joe. You know, when a Democrat voter here in Iowa asked Joe last year, you remember, if his son raked in money in exchange for providing access, Joe called that man a damn liar. You're a damn liar. Kid's making millions of dollars. He had nothing. He didn't have a job. Thrown out of the military, sadly, but thrown out of the military. And he knew nothing about energy. He knew nothing about investments, knew nothing about China. How about he walked away $1.5 billion to manage for China? They don't do that with the most brilliant people on Wall Street. Vice President Biden, you owe the people of America an apology because it turns out you are a corrupt politician, okay? Joe Biden must immediately release all emails, meetings, phone calls, transcripts, and records related to his involvement in his family's business dealings, influence peddlings around the world, including China and including Russia. Hunter raked in a fortune from China while Joe Biden was giving China all of our jobs. They came, you know where they came from, Iowa, and plenty of other places, but they came from Iowa. He was giving them, they were taking our jobs, they were taking our factories, they were taking everything, they were taking our wealth. And I gave you $28 billion. Say thank you very much.
So now he's back in. This is going to feature in the town hall tonight with Savannah Guthrie. There's no way it's not. I don't know if George Stephanopoulos is going to bring it up. Detective Thom from Oakland. Hello, Tom. Good morning. What's on your mind?
Good morning. Hi, good morning, Hugh. Okay, I'm a little slow on the uptake, as you know, because of my job and because I don't go to the degree granting institution out here in the Pac-10. So my question is, help me out here with the timeline. When was the hard drive discovered or turned over to the Fed, approximately?
I believe December of last year.
Okay, and so I'm left to go ahead and discern that they've been sitting on this since then.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume that, like every organization, it probably sat around. They may not have known what to do with it. They may have known what to do with it and didn't want to do something with it. I don't know.
So that might go ahead and answer the legal questions. I mean, we don't know if there's any illegalities here, do we?
I don't think there is, actually. I believe you take possession. The story, according to the Post, is that it was an abandoned laptop, which you take possession of if you've done work on it and hadn't been paid for. It becomes yours.
No, I got that. I'm talking about illegalities within the hard drive. We don't know what's on the hard drive in toto, correct?
Oh, correct. There's a lot we don't know. It's being leaked out day by day.
Okay, so then the question, one of the questions is legally, from my perspective, is we would have to go ahead and ascertain the veracity of the hard drive, the hard drive, the component of the computer, because you told me that the copy was made by the shopkeeper, correct?
Correct. That's the story.
And that was the one that was turned over to the press, correct?
Yes, correct. It was given actually to Rudy Giuliani, who gave it to the press.
Okay, so the FBI has had they've not released any statement or said, yes, in fact, we've taken possession of this. There's a case file, all
That's
the good
correct.
stuff that we do on our end.
No corroboration yet.
Okay, well, there may not be anything to the this may just be extremely bad publicity, and the fact that it corroborates that, there was a quid for the pro quo.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, well, then we don't know if there's anything illegal that happened then.
No, we do know that $1 million for China means that the Foreign Agent Registration Act is involved, and therefore,
how many guys go ahead and get clipped on that?
Very few, but it is a law, and I believe it's what got Michael Flynn to a plea, is FARA. And so Hunter Biden seems to have violated FARA to me, but I don't know the facts yet.
That's we're not gonna find that out unless Trump goes ahead and wins and keeps the Justice Department. At that point, I don't know what's going on with the FBI anyway. I don't trust them, which is sad. But so we can't ascertain if there's any illegality. This confirms what maybe a lot of voters out there think about Joe Biden and his family, correct?
Yes, it raises the negatives of Biden prior to the election, and I think it does have a dramatic impact in swing states because a lot of people are on the fence. Tom, you know that, right?
Oh no, I agree. It's going to be a turnout election. I just don't look. Look clearly. Clearly Biden lied and he's covering up for his kids. I don't know if there's anything illegal about that.
I agree, except FARA. I will tell you one thing, though. I believe that you just articulated one of the reasons people should vote. The unmasking proved not to be criminal. May not have been right, but it proved not to be criminal thus far as we know, and the guy in charge of it is retired. So no charges with regard to unmasking. What I would like to know, though, is whether or not Durham discovers if there was anything illegal worth indicting. And we won't know that until after the election. And if we don't reelect Trump, we'll never get to the bottom of any of it. And I would like everyone exonerated or indicted, depending upon what they find. And we'll never get to the bottom of it unless people vote for Trump. I think that's why people should vote for Trump. Tom, I got to go tell people about Relief Factor. Thank you, my friend. It is that time of the morning. I do have some lukewarm coffee. That's good because Relief Factor tastes best. It actually doesn't have any taste. You just swallow the Icarian curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. 8 miles yesterday, so that's 688 this week because I was able to listen to the hearings, right? And the NPR feeds are best. Stone cold coffee. Had to cough. Stone cold coffee. But my Icarian curcumin, resveratrol, and omega get me out there. And I just walked for 3 hours yesterday listening to Amy Coney Barrett utterly shred any attempt to trap her. She was brilliant. She was absolutely brilliant. As effective as Relief Factor is. Actually, more effective than anything I've ever seen, Amy Coney Barrett was. But Relief Factor doggone works. Go and get it at relieffactor.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
In the summer of 2016, right near the Republican convention, out of nowhere, there was chatter that started to surface around President Donald Trump allegedly having connections to Russia. In fact, we can go back and we find television clips of Hillary Clinton campaign surrogates starting to talk about Donald Trump is bought and paid for by Russia, or there is meaningful collusion happening on behalf of the Trump campaign in Russia. And it was always very bizarre. It was always so incongruent with the entire election because there were such bigger issues happening in 2016. Go back into 2016. Russia was not at the forefront of any sort of geopolitical conversations. People were mostly focused on Hillary Clinton's campaign or Hillary Clinton's emails. We'll talk about that. But 2016 was a lot about what Donald Trump was going to do if he became president. It was a lot about the economy. It was about the Obama succession. It was about the Obama legacy. And so this conversation about Russia always felt a very strange and very bizarre for those of us that were in the campaign, or around the campaign, I should say. And so John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, has just declassified a series of documents that revealed that former CIA Director John Brennan briefed former President Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's purported plan to tie then candidate Donald Trump to Russia as a, quote, means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Just a few minutes ago, let's remind everybody. So there's the Hunter Biden scandal, Ukraine. Hunter Biden's primary business partner, both at Burisma, the Ukrainian company, on many other things, including the China things, is a guy named Devon Archer. And back in 2018,
Kerry was involved as well. Kerry's stepson.
That was a third partner on some of the business ventures,
like Rosemont Seneca.
Right. His name was Christopher Hines. He didn't have anything to do with Burisma.
Okay.
But he did have to do with some of the other ones. But
so tell us about this other partner.
Devon Archer was the primary driving force on almost all of Hunter's big deals: the China deals, the Burisma deal, the Kazakhstan deal, the Russia deal about the Russian oligarch, the one that Joe Biden claimed wasn't true, but it is.
You mean the $3.5 million?
And you know what it is? It's more than $3.5 million. According to the documents the FBI obtained in Devon Archer's criminal case, which we're going to talk about, it was $200 million that came in for Yelena Baturina.
Well, she's a billionaire.
She is, so $200 million is, a little bit of money.
Right.
Yeah. And the FBI's known that. So it's that case. Devon Archer in 2018 was convicted of fraud in a case up in New York. And then mysteriously, a few months after the jury verdict, the judge set aside only his verdict. The other men in the case were continued to be viewed as
only
guilty. Only Devon Archer was excised from the case and freed, and the guilty verdict.
Welcome back, America. Day 4 of the Amy Coney Barrett hearings will go on today. She is no longer done. She's gotten through the gauntlet. And with 3 days of Senate hearings behind her, President Trump's nominee appears to be sailing towards confirmation. I hope she gets some Democratic votes. She's brilliant. And that's despite the foot dragging and the rabbit hole digging by Democrats on the Judiciary Committee left us all dazed and confused. They oppose the confirmation process even taking place. Kristen Waggoner is a senior legal counsel for America's most respected, in my view, legal defense fund. It is the Alliance Defending Freedom. Came up during the hearings because Amy Coney Barrett has lectured, as I have, to the Blackstone fellows in the past. And Kristen Waggoner believes that this is a great thing that's going on. She disagrees that the constitutional process should not have taken place.
Elections have consequences, and it would be more unusual for the president and the Senate not to move forward. The nominee have a public record of demonstrating a commitment and also the courage to protect America's fundamental constitutional freedoms, including the religious freedom and free speech for all.
For all. Last year, ADF received more than 5,000 requests for legal assistance. many of them from churches, many of them from small communities of believers, a handful from people who don't believe in anything at all, but wanted their free speech rights defended. The ADF tries to represent everyone, and they do so for free, but because of the contributions of people like you, you've really been rallying to them this week. Please, if you haven't yet given to ADF, go to HughHewitt.com, scroll to the top. You'll find a banner there. Will you fight for your freedom? Give now. Please contribute. You can also call the number 866-359-9644. That's 866-359-9644. And get the Blackstone Fellows even more support. It would be great if the 200 could become 400. Right now they can afford to bring 200 law students a summer to the Blackstone Fellowship. 200 of the best, smartest minds in America. And that's why Judge Barrett lectured to them. It's why I lectured to them. They're just great law students. Let me also remind you that early voting is underway in places like Arizona and Michigan and Georgia and in Ohio. Please go out and vote early. Don't get stuck. There are going to be long lines on Election Day. We are 20 days away. Let's get out and vote now. Will you go to keepamericaamerica.com, please? Keepamericaamerica.com. We'll tell you where to vote based on your zip code. And they're going to ask you, will you take a pledge to get one other person to the polls, one other member of your family, one other member of your church, one other member of your work group or your mom's group? Get out and vote. The country depends upon it. We've got to keep the Republican Senate. We've got to elect Susan Collins in Maine. She has saved 8,000 businesses in Maine with the PPP. 8,000 businesses that Susan Collins came up with after the COVID arrived. Susan Collins did that. Thom Tillis in North Carolina constructed the Great CARES Act. Thom Tillis was involved in that. David Perdue in Georgia needs your vote. David Perdue in Georgia needs your vote a lot. We need your help in Colorado for Cory Gardner. We need your help in Iowa for Joni Ernst. We need your help. Now, Steve Daines appears to have put it to bed. I don't think there's any other senator except Martha McSally in a tight race. Martha McSally in Arizona really needs your vote. Please go vote early in Arizona. Don't get caught in the line. KeepAmericaAmerica.com to go and find what you need to do. Let's go to the phones. Elizabeth in Detroit, are you voting for John James, Elizabeth?
Yes, I am. And, you know, they don't put his name on half the flyers that they criticize Gary Peters. And somewhere on it, it should say, vote John James. And half of the Michigan Republican Party flyers don't even have his name on it.
Well, John James is in a dead heat. John James is going to win that race. It's going to be the biggest upset of this cycle because I think he's going to cut it. The black vote in Detroit is going to go for John James. I think he's been working relentlessly for 2 years. I'll have him on next week.
Great. Wonderful. Well, I'm drinking my honor-bound coffee.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the reason I called is military intelligence report. According to that said, FBI had a copy of the hard drive September 2019, and they had a grand jury December of 2019. So what the heck have they been doing? The word that I have is that the same mentality that's been an impediment to Durham or anything coming out is this DC mentality with the prestige of office.
No, Elizabeth, I actually don't
be interfering.
I actually don't believe that's the case with this. I believe they got it in December of 19, according to the New York Post. And they would not, just because you just got to think about what happens with mail that arrives in your own house. I got stuff in the house back at home that has been there for 2 weeks that I haven't opened up. And so a guy from Delaware says, I got a laptop. I think it's Hunter Biden's laptop. And he gives it to the Bureau and he gives it to Rudy Giuliani's firm. Rudy Giuliani's firm eventually gets around to it and they look at it. But they didn't release it during the impeachment when it really would have helped President Trump. And so sometimes stuff just, I don't think there's a conspiracy. I think it's just government. But now that it's out, I can't believe Twitter and Facebook are censoring it because they've never censored a story. You see, the Constitution is very clear, according to the Supreme Court. A legally obtained material, if legally transferred to a press organization, is legitimately publishable. That is the law. And I don't understand why Facebook and Twitter are censoring the New York Post. But go to the New York Post, nypost.com, and read for yourself. Come right back, America, to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
You know, after all this time, Dennis, with the coronavirus and the shutdowns and New York and everything we've been through here, people have really reached the breaking point with this stuff. They just can't take it anymore. And so, yeah, it's a downer back here in New York, but it's a downer because Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio just won't let it go.
Your column today, which is why I called you, is Joe Biden is the shutdown candidate. I just spoke to Steve Cortez of the campaign, and I think that they should make this point every day, all day. You elect the Democrats, and you ain't seen nothing yet in the crushing of your freedom and your economy. Why don't they make that point regularly?
That's a good question. I think maybe certainly the Trump campaign is disorganized now with Bill Stepien, the campaign manager, testing positive, the president himself. So I'm not sure they're quite clear on which direction they're going in, not to mention dropping out of next week's town hall. But I agree with you. I think this is a vulnerability for the Democratic Party led by Joe Biden now. It jumped out at me in last week's non-debate. The one thing Biden said that seemed clear was you cannot fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And last night in the debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, the first thing Susan Page asked Kamala Harris was whether you and your boss, Joe Biden, would support further shutdowns.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
It up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video about this, and I said, you know, this whole business about white flight is a lot more complicated than what Michelle Obama is outlining. My neighborhood changed from one neighborhood that was all white to all black within a matter of years. And I'm not saying that a lot of people did not leave the neighborhood because of racism, because of fear of black people. But there were a whole lot of people who stayed in the neighborhood for a while, and then they realized a lot of their sons and daughters were being picked on and bullied by a lot of these black kids living in the neighborhood. There was even black flight as well. And Michelle Obama does not mention that. It's really curious, isn't it? She said when she was complaining about white flight, she said, quote, and I'm quoting her, "Y'all still running," close quote. Again, fascinating how people like Oprah Winfrey can just insult white people, call them bigots, and then they still say that she's respectable and we just love her, and y'all still running. Really?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And politically speaking, you got a Democrat candidate who's got a plan to pack the Supreme Court with 4 liberal justices because they can't accept the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing is going to lead to a 6-3 conservative majority. And they don't know what to do about it. So all they can do is say, well, we'll change the rules. We got to win. And then we're going to pack the court. Biden doubled down yesterday on refusing to answer the question.
They'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now, look, I know it's a great question, y'all, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election has begun. But 4 million or so people have already voted.
Think about that. A guy who's running for president doesn't want to tell you what he's going to do because he's afraid the media is going to write about it. The media is going to report on it. And the media just says, okay, makes sense to me. Nothing to see here. Meanwhile, the president, all right, not going to have a virtual debate next week because he's not going to sit in front of a computer. So instead of virtually debating Joe Biden, he's going to hold a campaign rally. And people are going to lose their minds.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
A day of celebration and jubilation has turned into a news cycle of condemnation and of a media circus unlike anything I've seen in recent memory. At times, I believe that the laws of nature and just basic Newtonian physics don't apply to the members of the activist media. So the president was discharged from the hospital, flies back on Marine One, comes back to the White House triumphantly, should be a symbol of conquering and of victory, should be a moment that should be kind of just a post-political moment. But instead of just trying to take a couple hours off and a couple days off, the activist media leans in more than ever before to try and attack the president for not properly wearing his mask or not being completely forthright with everything around the Chinese coronavirus. In fact, some members of the media, Mika Brzezinski, she suggested manslaughter. Let's go to cut 7.
But I'm just wondering, he's pushing all of this against the advice of the professionals in his government, right, against the advice of scientists. Right. At some point, isn't this manslaughter? I mean, if you purposefully put people in a position where you send a deadly virus their way.
Purposefully send a deadly virus their way. CNN also had a very aggressive take on it after the president got back to the White House being discharged from the hospital. Walter Reed, President Trump was under attack by CNN reporters trying to shame him for taking off his mask at home, getting good care, and giving hope to the nation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And let me ask you the obvious question. Maybe I'm naive. Why would any party wish to pack the Supreme Court? What would their objective be, Andy?
Well, obviously, it's the same objective that FDR had when he was slapped down by his own party trying to do it back in the New Deal days, and that is in order to convert the tribunal from its last vestige as a judicial institution into a super legislature that basically imposes the political will of the party that packed it. So obviously it's completely political, and it would really destroy our system, Seb.
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour. Hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt. I have been doing I'm getting questions. How bad are the polls? Because today the NBC poll showed that where it was 14-point lead for Biden a week ago, it's now a 11-point lead for Biden. That's momentum toward Donald Trump's consistent with what Senate candidates have been telling me. They've been seeing momentum all week for Republicans after the president got out of the hospital, after he recovered. Indeed, after Thom Tillis recovered, Mike Lee recovered, Chris Christie recovered. I'm knocking on wood. I'm hoping that everyone who got the virus at the White House or in connection with someone at the White House recovers. I'm hoping everyone recovers. The therapeutics are just much better. Regeneron, remdesivir. But the European second wave is real. I think we can expect a second wave here in the United States. But I'm being asked by people, what's the trustworthiness of polling? So I went back and looked at the 2016 numbers during the break. Real Clear Politics does an average. They do a final average. And, the final average, the only thing people look back at is what is the last poll done by an organization. They can be way off, but if they true it, that's why I don't pay any attention to polls until about 10 days from now, when we're in the last stretch. The last 5 days before an election, pollsters try their very, very best to get it right. They take their finger off the scales where they've had it on the scales, and not many do, but some do. And they try and true it up so they can maintain their reputation. Okay, so their Real Clear Politics posts their final average and then next to the actual result. In Florida, the final average of all the polls in 2016 had Donald Trump winning by 0.2%. He won by 1.2%. So there was a 1% miss. In Iowa, the final average of the polls had Trump winning by 3%. Trump won by 9.5%. In Michigan, the final average had Clinton winning by 3.4%. Trump won by 0.3%. In North Carolina, the final average was a tie. Trump won by 3.7%. In Ohio, Trump final average had 3.5 points. Trump actually won by 8. In Pennsylvania, the final average was Clinton 1.9% ahead. Trump won by 0.7. And Wisconsin, which was the biggest miss of all, the final average showed Clinton up 6. Trump won by 0.7. So I think you see in all of the final state averages of the key battleground states, there was at least a 1-point error and as much as a 6.7% error or a bias to Clinton 4 years ago. Now that's just undisputable. Those are the numbers. Now the question is, have the polls been fixed since then? I don't know any reason to believe that they have been, but here's where I may surprise you. They may be underreporting Joe Biden's lead because we have no idea who's going to turn out. I believe that the margin for errors are off the charts because of the shy Trump voter and because of turnout models that we've never seen before. We had 123 million people vote last time. We could have another 140 million people vote. It's just off of the charts. And I point out 5 million Americans in the last 9 months have bought a gun for the first time. That is, to me, probably the most significant stat I've seen this year. 5 million Americans who had never before purchased a weapon. You buy your first weapon, you buy your second weapon, that doesn't interest me. You buy your third, fourth, fifth weapon, that doesn't interest me. You buy 30 weapons, that interests me. That's actually a red flag if you buy them in a hurry. But if you buy your first weapon, you've made a decision. You've overcome a life predisposition. You've said, I need to arm myself. I need to protect myself. That is, to me, the most significant number out there. So I think these polls are going to move a lot in the last 20 days, and I think they're going to move a lot based upon the Biden story in the New York Post. I think we're in the wildest period I've ever seen. Gary in Pennsylvania, what do you think, Gary?
Good morning, Hugh. Long-time listener. I appreciate your fairness with everybody. That said, I believe, Hugh, the FBI's had this hard drive. I think it was in September of 2019.
I think it's December of 2019. Honest to goodness, I think it's December.
All right, I appreciate the correction on that. That said, Hugh, I think this is going to go the way of the Durham report. I don't think we're going to hear anything about it until post-election. I think the mainstream media are going to keep this as much under wraps as they possibly can. and I'm not sure it's going to go anywhere. I actually have that kind of a fear. I can tell you this.
Gary, can I tell you my Chick-fil-A theory? Do you remember when Chick-fil-A was boycotted? Remember when Chick-fil-A? Do you know how many people showed up at Chick-fil-A the next day?
Overwhelming.
That's because in America, everything is known, and everything that contributes to controversy about a story elevates it. Everybody knows about the Hunter Biden story. It is everywhere now, and they know that big media tried to crush it. And even though Facebook is how people communicate, people listen to me. I read the story yesterday. I've been talking about the censorship today, the second Hunter Biden story. Everyone who listens to me, and that's not 6 million every day, it's 6 million people a week or 8 million people a week. You know, the 300,000 or 400,000 people who are listening right now, they're going to go tell people Hunter Biden took $1 million retainer from a Chinese super businessman who was tied to the party to do what in 2017? I mean, that's the kind of nugget that gets out there, whether or not people want to share. It goes everywhere, Gary.
Let's hope it shows up tonight in the town halls, Hugh, and from your lips to God's ears.
Well, I don't think it's going to show up in the town hall. I don't think George Stephanopoulos has it in him.
I agree.
Yeah. Donald Trump will bring it up with Savannah Guthrie, and I don't think Savannah will try and shut him down. Savannah's very fair. Great newswoman. We will see tonight. Thank you, Terry. Gary, let me go to Terry in Alexandria, Virginia. Hello, Terry. Oh, being screened. I'm sorry. Jake in Cranberry, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jake.
Thanks, Hugh. Look, you give your football analogies. You talk about Ohio State. My thing is MMA, okay? When you see the guys against the cage and they're in a stalemate and it looks boring, blah, 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 they're on the ground and they're just kind of rolling around and nobody gets a real good position. When that one guy does the thing that hurts the other guy, like start giving him a bunch of shots to the ribs or something, the other guy moves. Like something changes when it hurts, okay? And when I heard about the story yesterday and heard you talking about it, and then 5 hours later, I hear, hey, you know what? President Obama is going to get on the campaign trail with Joe Biden. I think that story hurt the campaign, and they called 911 and got Barack on the line, and he's coming out to help them.
Could be. I didn't see the story about President Obama coming out to help former Vice President Biden. I didn't see that. I'll have to go look for that, but I appreciate the. I don't watch MMA, but I believe you. Travis is also in Pennsylvania. I keep saying all states are created equal, but Pennsylvania is most equal of all this year. What do you think, Travis?
Hey there, Hugh. How are you this morning?
Good.
Okay, so my question is, the other day up in Erie, Biden had a rally, and I saw a Facebook post. Which again, how do you trust Facebook? How do you trust any social media? But it was actually a photograph of a Biden rally, and there was everything taped off, and there were supposedly 8 people that showed up, and you were seeing people coming out in literal droves for the Trump campaign again. I mean, are the polls you're talking about? The polls are the polls that far off? Where the
I would be surprised. That's why I went through the 2016 numbers. All of the state polls were off at least 1 point, and most of them were off 3 points, and the biggest outlier was off 6 points. That's why I went through them. That's why I'm going to post them on Twitter. I don't know if they've corrected the problem. I don't know. I don't know polling. Polling is complicated. But I will keep you posted.
Living here in rural Pennsylvania, actually, I live close to State College, where you just picked up a new station.
Yeah, I love that station, because then I can talk about Ohio State during big game week.
No, they won't. But anyways, that being said, I drive down the road and I cover quite a bit of area during the day. I mean, other than in downtown State College, where it's very liberal because of the university, you do not see Biden signs. And it's just like,
But I got to tell you this, Travis. I live in Northern Virginia, and there is a Biden sign on every other house. So, I don't know how to, Virginia is blue now. It's going to vote for Biden. Pennsylvania is a big state. It's 3 states. I have no idea how it's going to vote, but I think it's going to determine the election. I'll be right back, America. 1-800-520-1234. Thank you, Travis. I'll post those numbers over the The Real Clear Politics Average versus the Final Result on my Twitter account. You go follow me at Hugh Hewitt. Stay tuned.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Alliance Defending Freedom.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I want to go back to Pence. I was really genuinely stunned and impressed at his self-control. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because you did not get the impression, which the media sometimes wants to give you, is that he's dull, that he's a dud. You could see the fire within. I think many people saw him as incredibly presidential and thought, my goodness, you could think what you want of Trump, but he picked this guy to replace him if something goes wrong. That's a pretty good pick.
When Trump or Biden are sworn in January of 2021, they will be the oldest president coming into office for a term. 74 or 78 will beat the all-time age limits. And so I think, particularly because of the discussion about whether or not Biden would even complete a term, I think the focus on Kamala Harris being a potential president really put that debate under that kind of spotlight. Would these people make a good president if the top guy goes down? And with Biden's health issues and certainly with the president catching COVID, I just think we've seen the humanity and kind of the frailty of the people that can be in that office pretty upfront. So that is a relevant question at this point in time. And there's no question about last night that Mike Pence had command not only of what he needed to say and what he wanted to get across, but the kind of have the demeanor to be able to do so in a way that would be appealing and understandable by the majority, majority of Americans.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
My guest is Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, people are clueless about the real meaning of Citizens United. Can you explain to people what that ruling really means, and why is the left so afraid of it?
Yeah, I can. It's a hugely important question. The chapter on free speech in the book talks all about Citizens United. Mm-hmm. Most people have heard of it, but they don't know what it is, and they know Democrats hate it.
Right.
What it was about is our right to criticize politicians. And in this instance, a nonprofit group in D.C. called Citizens United made a movie critical of Hillary Clinton. And the Obama Justice Department took the position that the government could fine them, could punish them for daring to criticize Hillary Clinton. The case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The most chilling moment was an oral argument when Justice Sam Alito asked the Obama Justice Department, under your theory of the case, could the federal government ban books? And the Obama Justice Department said, yes, we can ban books. Never mind what the First Amendment says, but we can. They criticize a politician. Now, thankfully, the Supreme Court rejected that by a vote of 5-4. There were 4 justices willing to say the government can censor movies, can censor books, can ban books if they criticize politicians. We're 1 vote away from our free speech rights being taken away.
Senator, who wins on November 3?
I genuinely don't know. The hard left's going to show up in massive numbers. If everybody else shows up, if people turn out, we could have a great election. The president could get reelected, and we could retake the House and hold the Senate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for Alliance Defending Freedom. I am their partner, as you should be, in their ongoing support to defend religious liberty and free speech in the United States. Not just for Christians, not just for Catholics, not just for Mormons and Jews, but for everybody. And they do it for free because of the generosity of people like you. Please go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to the banner at the very top. Please give generously today. Defend your freedoms. Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. I am hoping that you head over to my website, hughhewitt.com. At the very top, you will find a button, a banner for Alliance Defending Freedom. You've heard them maligned by left-wing Democrats this week. Alliance Defending Freedom is a great legal defense fund that celebrates and defends religious liberty and free speech. They have done so for more than 20 years. I have been a participant and a very happy lecturer in their Blackstone Fellowship program, which is primarily for 1Ls, people who finished 1 year of law school. It's hard to get a job when you're a 1L before you're a 2L, and the Blackstone Fellow goes and finds the smartest ones, and they bring them together from all across the country. You've got Harvard to all of the Ivies, all the great law schools of the United States, my alma mater, Michigan, Notre Dame. They even let some people from USC in. I'm not sure that's a degree-granting institution. And they allow them all to come, and they get lectured by great, great judges, lawyers, and by the resident faculty for 2 weeks. They work out in the field for 10 weeks. They come back for another week. The Blackstone Fellows, one of the great reasons to support Alliance Defending Freedom is they bring people like Amy Coney Barrett to talk to young lawyers. So please go to hughhewitt.com, find that banner. Will you fight for your freedom? And give now. $100 would be terrific. It's a way to stand up to the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee and say, we will not let you slander a great organization that stands for free speech and religious liberty. They are a Christian group, but they defend people of any faith or no faith at all. And they do it for free. Let's check out the markets this morning. It's going to be a bad start to the day if the overseas markets have anything to do with it, unless you're buying a house. AndrewandTodd.com, or where you go to get a mortgage, AndrewandTodd.com, or where you go to refinance your house. You can call Andrew and Todd at 888-888-1172. There with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They lend you the money at AndrewandTodd.com. You answer a couple of questions. I'll be back to you right away with the very best thing you can do with your house. Well, you can call them direct at 888-888-1172. And a word for you seniors who are sitting on a lot of house, a lot of home equity. You paid off your mortgage years ago, but you're a little tight. The Social Security didn't go far enough. A reverse mortgage may be the perfect thing for you. Never make another mortgage payment. Get the equity out of your house. You still have to pay your taxes, of course, every year in your homeowners association, if any exists. But the specialists are at AndrewandTodd.com. Yesterday, the Dow was down 165, the NASDAQ off 95, the S&P down 23. Overseas, everything is red this morning, and the 10-year Treasury has dropped to 0.72%, still the lowest interest rates in history. Patrick in Cleveland, you're on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Good morning, Patrick. Oh, Patrick hung up on us. Terry in Alexandria, Virginia. Hi, Terry.
Good morning, Mr. Hewitt. Two quick observations. The first, I know you're a strong advocate of home ownership. You just had a advertisement for the mortgage company that you advocate. The deep state bureaucracy has imposed a surtax on refis effective the 1st of December, and I think that's a undermining of the congressional powers. And maybe you should, I suggest that maybe you have a segment covering that.
I will ask AndrewandTodd.com about that, Terry. I'm unfamiliar with a surcharge. I'm unfamiliar, but AndrewandTodd.com will know.
It's a surcharge for adverse market conditions.
All right, I will look, Terry, but what's your second point?
Thank you. The second point is gun ownership. You could see the deep state bureaucracy slowly chipping away at our constitutional rights. During President Obama's second inauguration, in the middle of it, I jumped up and went out and purchased my first weapon. I'm a airborne ranger qualified retired Army officer. I'm not adverse to weapons. I never felt the need to have one in my home, but you could see those constitutional rights being slowly chipped away at.
Well, 5 million Americans have bought a weapon for the first time this year. What's that tell you, Terry?
It tells me that we're concerned about our individual protection of ourselves and our families.
That's it. I think people are afraid that the police can't help them, and so they decided to arm themselves. It's an amazing statistic. It is, to me, the most revealing statistic about people's state of mind. 5 million first-time gun purchasers in 2020. Wow. Chuck Todd joins me next, America. Don't go anywhere. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Thank you, Terry. 1-800-520-1234. Connection to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Don't forget to sign up for the Hughiverse. All of Hugh's broadcasts on demand, the after show, which in my opinion is worth the price all by itself, Dwayne FM, and all sorts of bonus content. www.hughiverse.com.
This is Michael Medved at michaelmedved.com for Town Hall. The appointment of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the United States Supreme Court counts as a masterstroke and easily one of the best decisions of Donald Trump's presidency. In an election season when liberals and media try to characterize conservatives as old, angry, bigoted, extreme, and lacking in empathy, Judge Barrett displays the opposite characteristics. At age 48, she's youthful, a genial consensus builder, and mother of 7, including a special needs child and 2 adopted kids from Haiti. On a court dominated for decades by Yale and Harvard graduates, she's a breath of Midwestern fresh air, beloved by her students at Notre Dame. Most importantly, she'll give new life to the originalist thinking of her mentor, Justice Antonin Scalia, in stressing what the Constitution actually says, not what Judge wanted to say. As Americans have been losing faith in public institutions, Judge Barrett can help to restore their confidence. I'm Michael Medved.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. If you're on a college campus today or have a child on campus, there's a solid chance you'll hear this: all white people are racist. You might hear this too: America is founded on white supremacy. These 2 sentences are not mere overheated emotion. They express an ideology called critical race theory, or CRT, which argues that race is a social construct made by white people. Just as race was once used to enslave and terrorize, so it is used today to keep America unequal, unfair, and hostile to minorities. The Trump administration just took symbolic and courageous action against CRT. It issued a memo to federal agencies calling for the end of the government's CRT racial sensitivity trainings, terming them divisive anti-American propaganda. Does America have real issues in its past? Yes. Have we made real progress that we must guard carefully? Also yes. The White House has led well here. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I have almost nothing to say about last night's debate. It was one of those things where I thought Mike Pence is masterful. The idea that he was able to contain himself and to respond in this measured way, no matter what Kamala Harris said, I thought that is seriously amazing to me in these passionate times in which we live. And I was in awe of his self-control. So that's all I'll say. What do you say?
Well, you know, he is a born-again Christian. He carries his faith very seriously, and I think that he represents that faith very well when he does things in public, and I thought last night was just an example of that. But there were a couple of things I was looking for, and I wanted to see if they were going to happen, and it took about 15 seconds into the debate for them to come true. One was I wanted to see how long it would take for the coronation to begin, and about 20 minutes into the debate, you already had CNN and MSNBC saying that Kamala was killing it and she was masterfully in control of the evening and so forth. And the other thing I wanted to see was, would she be the one of the two that would push the envelope with the emotional side of maybe overreaction? And it only took a few of those side-by-side shots where she's glaring at Pence while he's giving his response to whatever the question was. I mean, it wasn't like a gentle but placed smile. It was like, not only did
female
Pence,
Al Gore of color.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I'm not going to declare victory yet, Dennis, but I hope, because this is like a zombie, this Fine People hoax. It just keeps coming back from the dead. Maybe it's at least on life support now because of the big assist.
Well, the lie upon the lie is Joe Biden had no interest in running for president. It was Charlottesville that convinced him he needed to run. This man has been running for president for 47 years.
Right.
He never heard of Charlottesville, and he decided to run for president. I mean, the ease with which the left lies is breathtaking.
Right. You know, speaking of that, last night in the debate, it was interesting. The very first lie that Kamala told, it was I think about a minute in, literally, into the debate, and she actually used the word hoax, right? That was a lie, where she said that Donald Trump called the virus a hoax. And, of course, he never did. Even the Washington Post, by the way, conceived this. Even their fact checker said no. Of course, he was talking about the Democratic reaction to his coronavirus handling. He said that was a hoax. He never called the virus itself a hoax. And so she used the word hoax to lie, as I said, mere seconds into the campaign, into the debate. She lied quite a bit last night. She lied about her wish to ban fracking. You know, we have this on videotape. I mean, these people are pretty bold in their lies. But again, the
Welcome back, America. Chuck Todd is host of Meet the Press. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Chuck, Nick Saban, the head football coach at Alabama, tested positive. 20 players at Florida have contracted the virus. They have had to postpone the LSU game. What do you think is going to happen to college football?
Well, I mean, look, I think, frankly, this is not just sort of a coincidence that this is happening. We're in the middle of a spike, and I think things are about to get worse. I don't know what the Big Ten and Pac-12 are going to do. I'll be honest with you. I think by the time they start playing, we're going to be in even a worse spot for this virus around the country. I mean, look at the state of Wisconsin right now. Big Ten football is supposed to start in a week. It is. I just think we're going to have a lot of postponements. I mean, I love me some college football. I perhaps, where it is legal, like to wager $1 or $2. One of the things that you're learning, if you do like to recreational gamble, you got to wait till the very end of the week to find out what games are going to play.
Yep.
And you're now sort of used to the fact that there's 3 or 4 that are canceled a week. I have to tell you, one of the little early signs we'll see, because there's such good testing going on in the conferences, I do think when you see when all of a sudden we start to see games exponentially increase postponements over the next couple of weeks, it will be a sign that we're about to see a major spike, I think, in the country as well.
That's where I was going.
I think they're correlated. Yeah.
I think there's a canary in the coal mine for the country. I'm watching Europe, and I see this huge spike in Europe, and I think it travels. Yeah, it comes here after it's there. It comes here. Although
or it's still here. I mean, it is sort of. This is the other thing. It's just simply weather. Right? It's a little bit colder in spots in the country, so you're just not hanging out outside as much. And, you may end up having, all of a sudden you realize you're inside and, there's 50 people in here. This is the cold weather issue. This is what, frankly, the scientists have been warning about for 6 months, right? Redfield in particular was the first one to say, I really worry about the winter. Well,
that happened in 1918. The spring virus mutated 12 times during the summer and killed people instantly in the fall. That's what I worry about. Let me talk to you about something that you are expert on. You and Mark do polling. A listener asked me, so I went out and find it. In 2016, the final Real Clear Politics average was off in every battleground state, at least by a point, as much as 6.7 points. That's just their final average. Right. Have pollsters corrected this, Chuck?
Well, we have. I don't know if all pollsters have. And I'll be just frank with you. I don't know. I look at certain polls that I saw in the last couple of days come out of Florida and Georgia by one polling outlet. I'm like, I'm going to shave 3 points. Right? There's still some polling outlets that I just automatically shave 3 on, particularly when they're polling the states of Florida or Georgia. When I say shave 3, I shave 3 from the Democratic side and add it to the our side. What we have done, number one, is we, in the national poll, we actually check, and we do this periodically. We check, number one, to make sure we're not getting hang-ups. For instance, that people are, people that don't complete the survey, we do because we use a voter file now. We didn't use a voter file before 2016. So we're able to know who doesn't participate. So we make sure that we're not, we don't have a gap like that. We don't We don't weight by education, but we put guardrails by education is a more proper way to do it. You never want to fully weight that hard by it, but putting some guardrails around it. So we've done, and we think we're pretty confident there. On the state level, Harris thinks they found the problem. They believe they found the problem that all pollsters are having when it comes to state polls, and that is who you end up polling in the most rural county. They figured out, we were trying to figure out why were we off in Missouri and Indiana. And I told our mayor's folks, I said, look, we got to figure this out, but we can't stay in partnership, right? Well, we did an experiment in Kentucky governor in 2019. And the then Governor Bevin, in many ways, was just like Donald Trump. Pollsters had a hard time getting his numbers right. It always seemed to be he underperformed. It was the same, you had sort of the same phenomenon in Kentucky. And what our mayor's folks found is that in the way that sort of random digit dial works, we're a random digit dial in the state polls, in the most rural counties, you end up with people in the more populated part of the rural county. Now, you may think, oh, is that big of a deal? The rural county is a very conservative county. Well, guess what? That is a big deal. The more rural area you live in a rural county, the more conservative you likely vote. So in the more metropolitan part of a rural county, the less conservative, the more moderate. They may still be right-leaning, but you may be getting the sense, and of course, you know, your rural vote, if you end up with a more moderate rural vote, you may think, oh, he's only winning those rural counties 70-30 rather than 80-20. Well, then that can have an impact. So I apologize for going into the weeds, but you.
Oh no, I want the weeds. I want the weeds.
Of mine, and we worked really hard, and I'm proud of my mayor's folks for doing this. They put it out there. Some people have said, hey, you know, because they don't like what Maris found, because what Maris basically said is, we've been unfortunately doing this wrong for 40 years. The whole polling community. The reason we never got caught is because rural America had never been this polarized. When rural America was more 60-40 area, it washed out. You know, in the you know, that error didn't show itself. But what Trump gave us essentially was the first time where we polarized. Rural America was monolithic. When it wasn't monolithic, you didn't notice the problem. It was always a problem with random digit tile. But when rural America went more monolithic in its support, then it showcased these error rates.
Are you able to tell us about the iterative process between you as the political director and Mark and the Marist pollsters? The only time I've been involved in polling was 1978 during Boston busing, and it was so freaking complex it made my head hurt with Gary Orrin at Harvard. But I mean, what's their iterative process with you guys? How often do you sit down and talk methodology?
We collaborate on questionnaire. We collaborate both on all our polls. We collaborate on the questions. Questions are our editorial control. What our polling teams do, they do the logistics, right? It's their call centers, whether it's POS and Hart, who are the Republican and Democratic partnership. And they, by the way, in case people wonder, they rotate which firm handles the call center at any given time. So we almost randomize that a bit, not quite random, but we rotate that so that we're always trying to wash out our bias, right? In any way you can on that, dilute it or, have a check on ourselves. But it is the polling firms themselves, whether Marist or whether they operationally conduct the poll. We make, we do the editorial, and frankly, we also collaborate on sample design.
The weighting.
Whether we're going to oversample and no, the weighting is that, look, they let us know how they're weighting, but it's certainly, we defer to them. They're the experts on that. I'll have my question, what about this, what about this, what about this? But we collaborate, but, they're the experts here and we defer to them. And so, like I said, I'm proud of our mayor's folks for doing their own after action report and identifying the problem.
Now, the most interesting data point that I've got from 2020 is that 5 million Americans bought a gun for the first time this year. That's according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is a pretty reputable organization. It's not an action play. They represent people who make guns, and they follow it very closely. What does that tell you, Chuck Todd, that for the first time, 5 million Americans bought a gun?
Yeah, I'd say pandemic. I mean, that to me that doesn't surprise me at all. In a pandemic where there's some sort of survival instinct kicks in with all of us. I mean, I think we've all done little things to sort of think about what protects or secures ourselves. For some people, that will be purchasing a defense, mechanism like that. Maybe, maybe some people bought a generator. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, I say this because, my own family, I've thought about these things, but what I mean? We all think about these things, I think, when you're in this.
So it's a security election? Yeah. Do you think it's an economic election or a security election?
Well, if you look at our NBC Wall Street Journal poll, it's not an economic election. If it were, Trump would be winning. That's the bottom line, because Trump's ahead when it comes to the economy. The Republican Party's ahead when it comes to the economy. But Joe Biden's up 11. I think security is a good way of putting it, but it really depends on how you define security. I think the people that are supporting Biden might say it's security when it comes to this pandemic, right? If you wanted to sort of use that umbrella word. But you look at our polling, and again, if this were an economic election, Trump would be winning.
The last question. I met Rick Gates this month for the first time. I was introduced to him by common friends who are evangelicals, and they wanted me to meet with Rick, and I read his book, Wicked Game. And it's actually fascinating about 2016. It's fascinating. And those rallies worked in 2016. You saw last night in Iowa, Trump will probably do 30 rallies in the next 15 days. Do you think they matter?
I'm going to quote Tim Alberta on this. He made an observation about the rallies are different. He's done too much grievance this year. It's funny. One of the things we all forget is that the rallies in 16 had substance. You may not, the left may have said it was phony substance, trade, foreign policy and things like that. But he actually regularly talked about that stuff. Right now, he spends so much time on me, and look what they're doing to me. And I have to tell you, put it this way. I think we asked a fascinating question. We asked the better off question in our poll, Hugh.
Oh.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? 50% of the country said yes.
And Gallup had 56%.
Okay, ready for this? Is the country better off than it was 4 years ago? 58% said no.
Huh.
And that's the problem that Trump has, is that the country, essentially, if voters were more self-centered, he'd be winning. But voters are looking around and going, I don't like this.
All right, bonus question. How much volatility in 3 weeks? How much? I mean, Barrett is done. She's cooked in. She's going to get confirmed. How much volatility?
I don't think that much. I think, look, here's something else that to me is different from 16. This is our third straight poll with Biden over 50. I think we had one poll all year in 2016 that ever had Hillary over 50. So I'm just telling you, this feels a lot more stable than 4 years.
Chuck Todd, that's why we talk to you, and that's why we listen every Sunday. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Thank you, Chuck. Follow him on Twitter at Chuck Todd, and Meet the Press daily at 1 p.m. on MSNBC. I want to remind everyone as well, go to Alliance Defending Freedom. The button is at HughHewitt.com. Give $100 or give your best gift. Just give your best gift. Your best gift matters a lot to the people at Alliance Defending Freedom. It's the widow's mite in some cases. In other cases, it's 5 figures. Whatever you can give, please do go to Alliance Defending Freedom and dig deep. They got slammed by some Democrats this week in the hearings. They're a wonderful organization. I have lectured to them for more than a dozen years in the summer to the Blackstone Fellows, like Amy Coney Barrett did for 5 years. And they defend religious liberty everywhere. They defend free speech everywhere, and they're continuing to do so. They have won 11 Supreme Court cases in 9 years. That's what you need to know. And please go and vote. KeepAmericaAmerica.com. That's a project of the Job Creators Network. Like the Alliance Defending Freedom, they sponsor this show. Like the Alliance Defending Freedom, I'm 100% in with them. Keep America America is a vote, get out the vote effort. The largest conservative get out the vote effort ever. Do a little, do a lot, but do something. Go there, find out where you can vote early. Early voting is underway in Ohio, in Arizona. Get out and vote for Martha McSally, please. In all over the place. In Georgia, go vote for David Perdue. Get out and vote. Well, let me remind you as well, get out and exercise. ReliefFactor.com is how you make sure that you feel good every day. I tell you about it twice a day. I take it in the first hour. I took it last hour. I show you the bag 3 times a day. It's never not in my studio because I always want to take it and I want to feel good after the show. I'm out and about. Today it'll be, it's been 6, 8, 8 this week, so it'll be 4 today. Taking the weekend off. I have a pretty consistent plan that I follow, and ReliefFactor.com makes it possible to do so. I carry curcumin, resveratrol, omega, the only supplements I take a vitamin. I want you to know that I take vitamin D. It supposedly helps you in the preventing the virus, but I do make sure exercise, keep the weight off, get the weight off if you've got it, and get relieffactor.com to keep you feeling a little bit better from the minor aches and pains that plague you. Stay tuned, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Because when John McCain was running in 2008, he's on The View. And one of the ladies says to him, what happens if Roe v. Wade is overturned? And I'm at home yelling, it goes to the states, it goes to the states. And you live in a New York state, which is very liberal, nothing's going to change. Instead, Senator McCain just went, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen, but what kind of answer is that?
The wrong answer. I mean, it's you're exactly right, and what I describe in the book One Vote Away in the chapter on life is for 200 years of our nation's history, laws on abortion were made at the state level, and different states had different laws. And if you wanted to change the laws on abortion, you did the same thing you did if you wanted to change any other laws, which is you tried to convince your fellow citizens your ideas were right and their ideas were wrong. Then in 1973, the Supreme Court stepped in and said, you silly voters, you don't get to decide this anymore. We're taking this out of your hand. The American people have no ability to resolve this question. And I think that decision, more than anything, politicized the court. It's the reason we have these ugly circus confirmations now. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they support unlimited abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, partial birth abortion with no parental notification, no parental consent, and taxpayer funding for it all. Do you know, Larry, that only 9% of Americans support that radical extreme position? And yet that's what they want the court to mandate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
You've got the Speaker of the House saying something that is so telling to me. I've had a number of people text and call me and say, this 25th Amendment crap that Pelosi's pulling, this stunt, it isn't for Trump, it's for Biden. And as I think about it, and I'm listening to Nancy Pelosi's announcement, which we are just about to play for you. It's coming, I'm told, but this is just moments ago. Nancy Pelosi said, this is not about President Trump. He will face the judgment of the voters, but he shows the need for us to create a process for future presidents. You mean like Joe Biden if he wins? You know 59% of Americans polled by Rasmussen a couple of months ago don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term, right? 59. You know, in that same poll, 49% of Democrats don't think Joe Biden will complete a 4-year term. Is Nancy Pelosi setting up the 25th Amendment to remove Joe Biden so we have President Kamala Harris? You be the judge. You listen to what Nancy Pelosi said moments ago, announcing a bill on the 20.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined by United States Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. Welcome back, Senator. Congratulations on your recovery from the virus.
Good morning, Hugh. Feeling great.
Is everyone in your family well?
They are. As a matter of fact, none of my staff that I was with or family members, they've all tested negative. They're healthy, including my 2 beautiful granddaughters.
That is terrific. Senator Tillis, are you winning your race for re-election?
We certainly are. Cal Cunningham's campaign has collapsed. He built it on a foundation of sand, honestly. He said it was about truth and honor, and he's been untruthful and dishonorable, having an affair with the wife of a combat veteran is going to have him soundly rejected. And really everything that he said, he's been saying whatever he has to get elected. He's changed his positions between the primary and the general election. And I think North Carolina voters are smart enough to see that. So we win on November 3rd.
I saw a Susquehanna poll yesterday that said Cal Cunningham was up by 2 points, and I just can't believe it. I can't believe North Carolina, which is a very heavily military state. I don't know if they're polling the military, but I'm a civilian, but I'm in a military family. Every one of them knows you cannot, if you're a reserve officer, an active duty officer, carry on an intimate relationship with the spouse of a non-commissioned officer. It's illegal.
Well, beyond that, he's under investigation with the Army right now. Minimally, we're talking about somebody running for the Senate that's going to get a letter of reprimand. And if what we've heard reported recently proves true in the investigation, he could be subject to far more serious charges. And that's what the people in North Carolina need to know. This is somebody who's trying to run. He wants to be on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he's dishonored the Army. And based on, he had an affair in the middle of this campaign, Hugh. I'm not talking about years ago. I'm talking about a couple of months ago in his own home. You can't have it both ways. If you talk about truth and honor and you're untruthful and you're dishonorable, I think you are no longer fit to be a U.S. Senator or a member of Congress at all.
So are the polls lagging? Are they in the field? Are they talking to the wrong people? How can this poll have him up 2 points?
Well, the same way polls had me down by 2 points on Election Day, and we won by 1.5 points. We feel like the structure of the race has been moving in a direction long before these allegations prove true. That's why I believe we'll probably win the race by 1.5 or 2 points.
Are there any other indications that there are other affairs that your opponent has been engaged in?
Well, he has refused to answer questions. He has literally gone dark. I understand he's not living at his home anymore. He is not responding to any press questions. When he was asked, because we've heard the revelation of a second relationship with someone in North Carolina, he is just refusing to do it. I suspect he's doing that because he knows it would be devastating to his campaign, but it would also be more material information in the Army investigation.
I see. So let me turn to Amy Coney Barrett. I didn't begin with that because I believe it is a slam dunk that she will be confirmed. She will be successfully voted out of your committee and confirmed next week. What's your assessment, Senator Tillis?
Oh, I thought Judge Barrett did a fantastic job. The Democrats, you could even almost see an apologetic tone because they know that as much as they're trying to attack her, she is brilliant. She's a brilliant professor. She was a brilliant student. She's proven to be a brilliant justice on or judge on the Seventh Circuit, and they just couldn't pin her down. And they were also hypocritical. I mean, they were asking her questions she knew she couldn't answer. The same response that Sotomayor and Kagan and Ginsburg had given. So they were trying to pretend that she was being evasive, but what she was doing was being a good judge. She's just brilliant. She's going to go down, I think, in history as one of the great Supreme Court justices. I'm going over to the Capitol here in a few minutes. We will do markup later today after we have some closing comments from members and from people for and against her on two different panels. And then she's going to get confirmed probably the week after next.
Senator Tillis, when you have the panel...
She's going to get confirmed the week after next.
Yeah. When you have that panel that is against her, would you ask them if anyone understood Sheldon Whitehouse or Mazie Hirono? Honest to goodness, I couldn't make sense of what those two were saying.
Well, you never can. And Hugh, here's again the hypocrisy of Sheldon Whitehouse. We now have tallied up my race to $236 million. It's going to be another record breaker, a historic cost of a Senate race. The vast majority of that money is dark money coming from the Democratic side. What Sheldon Whitehouse doesn't want to do is talk about the fact that Chuck Schumer spent more in North Carolina than any other state. He is approaching $90 million. He handpicked Cal Cunningham. He's spending money running false ads that have been proven to be false, but they're aggregating money. My gosh, Lindsey Graham's raised $57 million in a quarter.
A quick question. When Chuck Schumer recruits someone, does he not tell them to keep their pants on?
Well, I think that's probably implied, but in this case, it proved not to be true for Cal Cunningham. And Hugh, I can't have this discussion without saying that the people in North Carolina need to keep the wife and the teenage children out of it, and the family.
Of course.
of the combat veteran, because this is not about the substance of the affair. It's about Cal Cunningham's substance or lack of substance or lack of honor or lack of truthfulness.
Of course, Senator Tillis, appreciated your being there. Glad you have recovered. Good luck in the closing kick in this campaign. Come back next week and update us. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm going to talk with Senator John Kennedy, Senator Ted Cruz about these hearings when we return. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Job Creators Network.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
In the summer of 2016, right near the Republican convention, out of nowhere, there was chatter that started to surface around President Donald Trump allegedly having connections to Russia. In fact, we can go back and we find television clips of Hillary Clinton campaign surrogates starting to talk about Donald Trump is bought and paid for by Russia, or there is meaningful collusion happening on behalf of the Trump campaign in Russia. And it was always very bizarre. It was always so incongruent with the entire election because there were such bigger issues happening in 2016. Go back into 2016. Russia was not at the forefront of any sort of geopolitical conversations. People were mostly focused on Hillary Clinton's campaign or Hillary Clinton's emails. We'll talk about that. But 2016 was a lot about what Donald Trump was going to do if he became president. It was a lot about the economy. It was about the Obama succession. It was about the Obama legacy. And so this conversation about Russia always felt very, very strange and very bizarre for those of us that were in the campaign, or around the campaign, I should say. And so John Ratcliffe, the Director of National Intelligence, has just declassified a series of documents that revealed that former CIA Director John Brennan briefed former President Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's purported plan to tie then candidate Donald Trump to Russia as a, quote, means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Just a few minutes ago, let's remind everybody. So there's the Hunter Biden scandal, Ukraine. Hunter Biden's primary business partner, both at Burisma, the Ukrainian company, on many other things, including the China things, is a guy named Devon Archer. And back in 2018,
Kerry was involved as well. Kerry's stepson.
That was a third partner on some of the business ventures,
like Rosemont Seneca.
Right. His name was Christopher Hines. He didn't have anything to do with Burisma.
Okay.
But he did have to do with some of the other ones. But
so tell us about this other partner.
Devon Archer was the primary driving force on almost all of Hunter's big deals: the China deals, the Burisma deal, the Kazakhstan deal, the Russia deal about the Russian oligarch, the one that Joe Biden claimed wasn't true, but it is.
You mean the $3.5 million?
And you know what it is? It's more than $3.5 million. According to the documents the FBI obtained in Devon Archer's criminal case, which we're going to talk about, it was $200 million that came in for Yelena Baturina.
Well, she's a billionaire.
She is, so $200 million is, a little bit of money.
Right.
Yeah. And the FBI's known that. So it's that case. Devon Archer in 2018 was convicted of fraud in a case up in New York. And then mysteriously, a few months after the jury verdict, the judge set aside only his verdict. The other men in the case were continued to be viewed as
only
guilty.
Devon Archer.
Only Devon Archer was excised from the case and freed, and the guilty verdict overturned. The Justice Department appealed. The wheels of justice turned slow. But at 4 o'clock, just a few minutes ago, the Second District Court of Appeals in New York reinstated the guilty plea, saying the judge had no right to come up with their own theory of the case and throw out Devon Archer's conviction.
So the prosecution said the judge can't just throw out a guilty verdict.
Exactly. And more importantly, because I think this has some application to the Mike Flynn case.
Yes.
The judge was scolded for developing their own theory of the case.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
But last night, I'm going into it. I've known Mike Pence for 30 years. I knew he was going to be the polished gentleman that he always is, a consistent Christian, very capable of keeping his testimony intact when he's in front of people. And I was waiting to see if the Kamala from about the third or fourth primary debate, remember where she was just like hacking at Joe Biden and she was just out of control. We didn't get that Kamala Harris last night, but the one we did get was someone who still obviously gets very angry about things and can't keep that from expressing it on her face. And all you had to do was read some of the Twitter activity during the debate. Megyn Kelly calling her out on, she's like, even if you feel it, don't wear it on your face, lady.
I try to filter out my own biases. I tried to be aware of my own biases. And I'm thinking, do I not like her just because I don't like her positions? Do I not like her? But there does seem to be something cloying and annoying about the way she comes across.
On the optics alone, and all you have to do is just look at the average number of polls that are being done by individual news stations that carried the debate and so forth last night, all across Twitter. I have not seen a poll come in from an independent journalism outlet or think tank group that has not said that Pence won in a landslide last night. And I don't think that that was purely on policy, because I think a lot of those places don't agree with Mike Pence on policy. I think that is a reflection of how she comes across personality-wise.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
After all this time, Dennis, with the coronavirus and the shutdowns and New York and everything we've been through here, people have really reached the breaking point with this stuff. They just can't take it anymore. And so, yeah, it's a downer back here in New York, but it's a downer because Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio just won't let it go.
Your column today, which is why I called you, is Joe Biden is the shutdown candidate. I just spoke to Steve Cortez of the campaign, and I think that they should make this point every day, all day. You elect the Democrats, and you ain't seen nothing yet in the crushing of your freedom and your economy. Why don't they make that point regularly?
That's a good question. I think maybe certainly the Trump campaign is disorganized now with Bill Stepien, the campaign manager, testing positive, the president himself. So I'm not sure they're quite clear on which direction they're going in, not to mention dropping out of next week's town hall. But I agree with you. I think this is a vulnerability for the Democratic Party led by Joe Biden now. It jumped out at me in last week's non-debate. The one thing Biden said that seemed clear was you cannot fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And last night in the debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, the first thing Susan Page asked Kamala Harris was whether you and your boss, Joe Biden, would support further shutdowns.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
It up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway, joined now by Senator John Kennedy of the great state of Louisiana. Senator Kennedy, welcome back. Great to have you.
Thank you, Hugh. How the heck are you, man?
I am terrific. I hope you were well. I hope you're not exhausted by 3 days of hearings. I'm going to come back to those hearings in a second. I have to ask you first about the Hunter Biden story because you practiced law for a while, didn't you, before you ascended to the august ranks of the United States Senate?
I did, yeah. I taught law, too.
I'm looking at a document where Hunter Biden was retained of counsel for $1 million engagement letter, $1 million in order for him to pick other lawyers for a Chinese super company. Have you ever heard of $1 million engagement sum?
Not under these circumstances. I mean, it's pretty good work if you can get it. I just find these new emails to be extraordinary. I mean, as I said last night, this is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke.
It
I mean,
is
we're
indeed
talking about a major party nominee of the United States of America, the most powerful country in all of human history. What, 2.5 weeks before an election? And every single solitary responsible news organization in America and the world needs to be working to determine the veracity of these allegations and those emails. And if they're not, they're doing the American people, the people of this world who love freedom, a gross disservice.
Now, I have practiced law for
social media.
I practiced law for 35 years. I retired from big firm practice 2 years ago. My licenses are still active. I look for authenticity before I report something. The pictures of Hunter Biden that are included in the file suggest that the computer is legit and therefore that the emails are legit. But what is not legit is an email that suggests $1 million engagement letter, a retainer of $1 million. I have practiced for 35 years in one of the biggest firms in the country. I have never seen anything like this, Senator Kennedy, ever.
It's serious. And the New York Post is a reputable newspaper. They have lawyers. They're subject to the defamation and libel laws and slander laws of America. They have determined the authenticity, but yet Twitter and Facebook have decided not to disseminate the news. And Twitter and Facebook need to be very careful here. The American people are watching. If they're going to start playing favorites, if they're going to pick winners and losers and decide what news is fit to print and which isn't, there are going to be long-term consequences to that. Yeah, not just by the Republicans, but by right-thinking Democrats as well.
There has to be one rule, and the one rule was not applied to illegally obtained documents concerning President Trump's tax returns, and they are being applied to legally obtained documents, as far as I can tell, regarding Hunter Biden and his father, Joe Biden. Now let's go to Amy Coney Barrett, the good news story of the week.
Can I say one more thing, Hugh?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, I find this extraordinary. I mean, think about the message that this sends. President Obama put Vice President Biden in charge of the foreign affairs of 2 countries, Ukraine and China. And his son walked away with millions and millions of dollars in contracts. Now, I don't know whether he broke a law or not, but I know the message that was sent to the world, and that is that America's foreign policy can be bought like a sack of potatoes. And we got to get to the bottom of this.
It's unfortunately very late in the cycle, but I don't think the censorship will work. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone in America knows about it. I hope it moves the needle in the election because I think it's serious. Let's talk about Judge Barrett. I have watched these confirmation hearings up close since I was in the Reagan administration as an assistant counsel in 1985. And I know that I've seen good nominees and bad nominees. I have never seen anyone as composed and as completely in command of everything as Judge Barrett. You've been on that committee for a while. Did we lose the senator? We lost the senator. Are you calling him back? He dropped. We managed to get that in. I had such a wonderful introduction to ask him, but he dropped. And I will finish my thought. Maybe he'll call back. I've never seen any nominee as composed and in command of facts and law under extremely intense questioning as I have Judge Barrett. I am very, very pleased, and I want to compliment the Democrats for not attacking her religious faith. No one ever brought up people of praise. No one dared bring it up. And I think that speaks well of the Democrats. They have reformed their conduct in 2017. And I am very, very happy. Senator Kennedy, I was just saying, I'm so happy the Democrats did not go after Judge Barrett's faith, but I was also impressed with her as I've never been with a nominee. What were your impressions of her after 2 days of testimony?
Oh, she's a legal maestro. I mean, she's a rock star. That's clear. And I asked the tough questions. I mean, I did my job. You got to make sure that we don't make a mistake here. But she is something. She's smart, wonderful temperament, enormous integrity. She's thought about her judicial philosophy, whether you agree with her judicial philosophy or not, and I happen to. She is carefully developed and thought out. The Democrats are not. They're going to. I wouldn't be surprised if they just said, "Let's get this over with." They're the smart. My smart colleagues on the committee, and I'm not putting anybody down. I'm not saying anybody isn't smart, but if they're smart as I think they are, they're going to leave this witness alone. You've been a lawyer. When you get a witness this good, you know what you do? You sit down.
Yes, you do. I'm not a trial lawyer, but I do know confirmation processes. They stayed away from her religious belief. I want to compliment your Democratic colleagues. They did not do so in 2017. They did so this time. Why did they not go there this time, Senator Kennedy?
Well, I think for two reasons. I think first, they received justifiably a huge backlash when they tried it last time. And number two, it became pretty clear to you pretty quickly that if they tried to do it this time, Judge Barrett was going to make them eat it. I mean, we're in the South, we call someone like this a steel magnolia. I mean, she was going to make them eat it. She was ready, locked and loaded. This is a woman of deep conviction. And she is a sincere Christian and proud of it. And they left her alone.
You got into some really interesting severability issues, which I think left most of the country behind. My last question, the Democrats talked about the ACA endlessly. I think this was a terrible choice on their part because the ACA case is not going to strike down Obamacare. Will it matter to anyone that they were wrong for a week?
Well, I hope so. I mean, what the Democrats tried to do is they had no choice when you've got a nominee this good. They just tried to confuse the issue, and they prosecuted the narrative that, well, if we put her on the court, she'll be on a mission from God to deny everybody in America quality and affordable health care. Well, I mean, sell crazy somewhere else. You know, that's not, the American people aren't going to believe that. That's the thing that many of my colleagues mistake many of them. They think the American people are morons. They see right through this, and they heard the lady's testimony.
What about Sheldon Whitehouse's?
I don't blame them for trying because they didn't have a choice. There's nothing to. They tried to hit her with everything but a hammer, and everything bounced off.
What did you make of Senator Whitehouse's charts? Because I think they made him look rather foolish in the eyes of most Americans.
Well, Ted did. I mean, Sheldon. Look, this is America. Sheldon has the right to say whatever he wants, but Ted Cruz was right behind him. And you know, if I'm Sheldon, after the facts that Ted brought forth, I don't know that I'm going to be talking about it so much anymore.
I agree with you. Senator, when will she be confirmed?
The Dems will probably make us hold her over. That's an obscure committee rule for a week. If I were they, Hugh, I wouldn't prolong this. I'd say let's waver through and start talking about something else, because we're getting our rear ends kicked here. This lady is the real deal.
I don't think they're going to do that, but Senator, good to have you. Thank you for really being prepared and bringing it this week. I appreciate John Kennedy of Louisiana. Thank you, Senator. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
You know, after all this time, Dennis, with the coronavirus and the shutdowns and New York and everything we've been through here, people have really reached the breaking point with this stuff. They just can't take it anymore. And so, yeah, it's a downer back here in New York, but it's a downer because Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio just won't let it go.
Your column today, which is why I called you, is Joe Biden is the shutdown candidate. I just spoke to Steve Cortez of the campaign, and I think that they should make this point every day, all day. You elect the Democrats, and you ain't seen nothing yet in the crushing of your freedom and your economy. Why don't they make that point regularly?
That's a good question. I think maybe certainly the Trump campaign is disorganized now with Bill Stepien, the campaign manager, testing positive, the president himself. So I'm not sure they're quite clear on which direction they're going in, not to mention dropping out of next week's town hall. But I agree with you. I think this is a vulnerability for the Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden now. It jumped out at me in last week's non-debate. The one thing Biden said that seemed clear was you cannot fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And last night in the debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, the first thing Susan Page asked Kamala Harris was whether you and your boss, Joe Biden, would support further shutdowns.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
It up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video about this, and I said, you know, this whole business about white flight is a lot more complicated than what Michelle Obama is outlining. My neighborhood changed from one neighborhood that was all white to all black within a matter of years. And I'm not saying that a lot of people did not leave the neighborhood because of racism, because of fear of black people. But there were a whole lot of people who stayed in the neighborhood for a while, and then they realized a lot of their sons and daughters were being picked on and bullied by a lot of these black kids living in the neighborhood. There was even black flight as well. And Michelle Obama does not mention that. It's really curious, isn't it? She said when she was complaining about white flight, she said, quote, and I'm quoting her, "Y'all still running," close quote. Again, fascinating how people like Oprah Winfrey can just insult white people, call them bigots, and then they still say that she's respectable and we just love them. We just love her. And y'all still running? Really?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And politically speaking, you got a Democrat candidate who's got a plan to pack the Supreme Court with 4 liberal justices because they can't accept the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing is going to lead to a 6-3 conservative majority. And they don't know what to do about it. So all they can do is say, well, we'll change the rules. We got to win. And then we're going to pack the court. Biden doubled down yesterday on refusing to answer the question.
They'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now, look, I know it's a great question, y'all, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know the...
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Markets overseas are getting slammed today. European stocks are dropping on signs that the coronavirus is gathering a wave of previously unreported momentum in the continent, in France, in Spain, and across the continent. It's just gathering strength. And as a result, the European stocks are way down today, 2% off. And that which happens in Europe, likely to bring coming here. The spread of coronavirus across France has worsened in a week, with Paris clocking more than 2,100 cases per 100,000 people. That's higher than here in the United States by quite a lot. I'm here to tell you, this isn't a political disease. It doesn't matter whether people locked down or didn't lock down. Turns out the lockdowns, according to the WHO, were a bad idea, that the parallel costs were way out of proportion to the benefit they provided. And I don't know what we're going to do except depend upon better therapeutics and get that vaccine done. Because the world is under assault, not the United States. It's not about Donald Trump. It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about the Republicans and the Democrats. They can talk about the coronavirus relief bill. I can't believe Nancy Pelosi is holding it up. But meanwhile, if you need money, go to your house. If you've been thrown out of work and you have a house with equity in it, refinance it. AndrewandTodd.com are the people to go to. They are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. I've known Andrew for 20 plus years. I've known Todd Abakian for 8. You can trust them. Call them at 888-888-1172. They're soup to nuts lenders, right? They lend you the money. They don't get a bank to lend you the money. They don't shop your loan around. No, they actually go to work on your file. They get your credit score. They find out what you're worth, what you're qualified for. They do what lenders do. They check you out and then they help you. They want to close the loan, but they will not recommend a bad loan. I know these guys. They get you great rates. The rates have never been this low. And again, I repeat to moms and dads out there and grandparents and grandchildren, talk about becoming a non-occupying co-borrower, lending your good credit to that of a youngster in your household or your family who needs to get into a house and get a 30-year mortgage at these ridiculously low rates, because this is a particularly bleak time in the economy. That's a great time to buy a house, and housing will lead us to the recovery. I am really interested in what the GDP number is going to be in October. Late October. I think we will have rebounded significantly and America will have adjusted except for 2 sectors. I think travel and restaurants are going to stay depressed, but I think everywhere else, the economy has rebounded and people have figured out how to go to work. But we're going to find out on October 29th, I believe. On October 29th. Donald Trump last night in Iowa, before he left, though, on the White House lawn, he said that the election is stark. Cut number 11.
The choice facing America is simple. It's the choice between historic prosperity under my pro-American policies or very crippling poverty and a steep depression under the radical left. And that's what you'll have, is a depression. I will deliver optimism, opportunity, and growth. They will deliver pessimism, stagnation, decline, and very high taxes. Simply put, it's a choice between a socialist nightmare and the American dream.
That was the Economic Club of New York, a virtual event. The president went on to say this, cut number 12.
Democrats in Washington are also pushing a plan to abolish the suburbs by eliminating single-family zoning and linking federal highway grants to a federal takeover of local zoning. Your suburb will be gone. The American dream will be gone. This plan will devastate the property values of millions of middle-class homeowners, including the majority of African-American, Hispanic-American, and Asian-American households who live in the suburbs. The policies of the left would unleash a long-lasting economic catastrophe of unimaginable proportions.
One more cut, 13, President Trump at the White House.
China unleashed the virus onto the world, and only a Trump administration will hold them accountable. And if this administration, if I don't get elected in a little while, 20 days, China will own the United States.
That's a clear line in the sand between Joe Biden, whose son, Hunter Biden, took $1 million from one of the Communist Party's key right arms in 2017, $1 million engagement letter. I'm just astonished that that story isn't on the front page of every paper today. I don't doubt the authenticity of these emails. I also think they were obtained legally. I don't get the censorship. I'll talk to Ted Cruz about it after the break. Stay tuned, America.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Alliance Defending Freedom.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
It up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Larry Elder, ReliefFactor.com studio, quite a statement to make. This is a woman, Michelle Obama, who recently accused white people of still running. Y'all still running. She was complaining about white flight, which she witnessed when she was growing up in Chicago. I did a video about this, and I said, you know, this whole business about white flight is a lot more complicated than what Michelle Obama is outlining. My neighborhood changed from one neighborhood that was all white to all black within a matter of years. And I'm not saying that a lot of people did not leave the neighborhood because of racism, because of fear of black people. But there were a whole lot of people who stayed in the neighborhood for a while, and then they realized a lot of their sons and daughters were being picked on and bullied by a lot of these black kids living in the neighborhood. There was even black flight as well. And Michelle Obama does not mention that. It's really curious, isn't it? She said when she was complaining about white flight, she said, quote, and I'm quoting her, "Y'all still running," close quote. Again, fascinating how people like Oprah Winfrey can just insult white people, call them bigots, and then they still say that she's respectable and we just love them, we just love her, and y'all still running. Really?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
And politically speaking, you got a Democrat candidate who's got a plan to pack the Supreme Court with 4 liberal justices because they can't accept the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing is going to lead to a 6-3 conservative majority. And they don't know what to do about it. So all they can do is say, well, we'll change the rules. We got to win. And then we're going to pack the court. Biden doubled down yesterday on refusing to answer the question.
They'll know my opinion on court packing when the election is over. Now, look, I know it's a great question, y'all, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election has begun. But 4 million or so people have already voted.
Think about that. A guy who's running for president doesn't want to tell you what he's going to do because he's afraid the media is going to write about it. The media is going to report on it. And the media just says, okay, makes sense to me. Nothing to see here. Meanwhile, the president, all right, not going to have a virtual debate next week because he's not going to sit in front of a computer. So instead of virtually debating Joe Biden, he's going to hold a campaign rally. And people are going to lose their minds.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Day of celebration and jubilation has turned into a news cycle of condemnation and of a media circus unlike anything I've seen in recent memory. At times, I believe that the laws of nature and just basic Newtonian physics don't apply to the members of the activist media. So the president was discharged from the hospital, flies back on Marine One, comes back to the White House triumphantly, should be a symbol of conquering and of victory, should be a moment that should be kind of just a post-political moment. But instead of just trying to take a couple hours off and a couple days off, the activist media leans in more than ever before to try and attack the president for not properly wearing his mask or not being completely forthright with everything around the Chinese coronavirus. In fact, some members of the media, Mika Brzezinski, she suggested manslaughter. Let's go to cut 7.
But I'm just wondering, he's pushing all of this against the advice of the professionals in his government, right, against the advice of scientists. Right. At some point, isn't this manslaughter? I mean, if you purposefully put people in a position where you send a deadly virus their way.
Purposefully send a deadly virus their way. CNN also had a very aggressive take on it after the president got back to the White House being discharged from the hospital. Walter Reed, President Trump was under attack by CNN reporters trying to shame him for
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Senator Ted Cruz has a new book out, One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court History Seat Can Change History. That one vote was sitting in front of him, I think, today and last week, this whole week. Senator Cruz, welcome back. What did you make of Judge Barrett?
I think she's very strong. She's performed beautifully in the hearings, calm, cool, collected. I think her temperament has been scholarly and judicial. And you know, I have to say, the first day you had a couple of Democrats who tried to hit her with some hard questions, and frankly, they didn't have a chance. She sat at the table without a single note in front of her and just calmly answered their questions. And by the second day, by yesterday, I mean, the real news of yesterday is the Democrats have given up. I mean, by midday, they were all gone. There were only 2 Democrats left in the hearing room, and I think they realized they don't have a substantive argument when it comes to her credentials. Her credentials are very, very strong. They don't have an argument when it comes to her record. So they're mad, but they recognize that they're not able to stop this confirmation. And so she's going to be confirmed, I believe, by the end of the month.
Now, she is the AC 130 of nominees. There wasn't any target she couldn't hit. Nevertheless, Sheldon Whitehouse just distinguished himself. Well, Senator Harron is up there too, but Sheldon Whitehouse and that crazy Graham. And I listened to your entire rebuttal yesterday, but does he realize that's just a crazy Graham to the rest of the country?
You know, I don't know if he does. I think he believes what he's saying. He's convinced there's some evil conspiracy, and it's, 5 Fortune 500 companies twirling their mustaches and controlling it all. And it really does seem like the whole thing in his mind is connected by red yarn from point to point on the board. It's a bit out there, and of course the irony is when it comes to money in politics and big business in politics, the Democrats overwhelmingly dominate the field in terms of billionaires trying to elect crazy radical Democrats, including Sheldon Whitehouse. So he happily takes advantage of the money, but what he wants to do simultaneously, what that fight is about is power. He wants government to have the power to regulate what you say and what I say. And it's all about protecting incumbents. And Democrats are the party of government. The more power the government has, the happier they are. And when it comes to free speech, as you know, in my new book, One Vote Away, every chapter is on a different constitutional liberty. And there's an entire chapter that focuses on free speech and what it means. The Citizens United case in particular, which would give the federal government the power to ban movies that are critical of politicians. That's what was the fact pattern was in Citizens United, and the Democrats want the government to have that power to make it illegal for you to criticize them.
Now, if Twitter or Facebook were government, and they are not, what they did yesterday would be blatantly unconstitutional as viewpoint discrimination, perhaps even content discrimination. I think certainly viewpoint discrimination. You spoke out about this last night. Would you explain to people why it is ominous, though not illegal, what Twitter and Facebook did?
Well, so I've long been concerned about big tech censorship, and they're silencing conservative voices. They're silencing voices, shadow banning voices they disagree with. They crossed a really important line yesterday, and it was significant. The New York Post broke a story about emails discovered that indicate that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, set up a meeting with his father when his father was vice president, and the officers from Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company that was paying Hunter Biden millions of dollars. Throughout all of impeachment, Joe Biden insisted he didn't know anything about Burisma. He wasn't involved. He didn't know what his son was doing. And so, if this story is right, it means Joe Biden was lying. That he was very involved, and what he told the press and told everyone else was a flat out lie. I don't know if the New York Post story is right or not. It seems to me that it raises some real questions that need to be answered. But what Twitter and Facebook did is they decided they didn't want anyone talking about it. So they banned anyone from linking to the story. So if you sent out a tweet that linked to the story and someone tried to click on the link, it came up with a page instead that's blocked you from the site and said this site contains dangerous information, which I guess it was dangerous for Joe Biden's political fortunes. But it was absurd, and they even took it a step further. The New York Post themselves were sending out tweets with their own story, as media outlets do. They blocked the New York Post. They prevented the New York Post from posting. The New York Post has the fourth highest circulation newspaper in the country. And to take the step of saying, we, big tech, a handful of billionaires in Silicon Valley, are going to use our power, our monopoly over communication to shut down major press outlets running stories about allegations of corruption at the highest level. It is a stunning step in the abuse of power and the politicization of big tech, and it. I think it's waking a lot of people up that big tech is getting much more brazen in how they use and abuse their monopoly power.
Now, in today's New York Post story, I preface this by saying I practice with big firms in Washington, D.C. I practice with big firms on the West Coast. I am retired now, except as general counsel of the Nixon Foundation and a few cats and dog matters for family and friends. And so you practice for big firms as well. Yep. I've seen a lot of big firm practice. I have never seen $1 million engagement letter. I have never seen any kind of an engagement letter from a communist Chinese official's deputy. And Hunter Biden got $1 million engagement letter in 2017 from a Chinese Communist Party. It's got to be connected. It's in Hong Kong. It's an energy company. You know how it works, Senator Cruz. Yeah. What does that engagement letter tell you?
Look, the evidence is starting to pile up that Hunter Biden's business model was selling influence and access to his dad, and that his dad, the evidence is also starting to pile up, was in on it and was willing to give access. And look, in the case of Burisma, we know that Joe Biden explicitly threatened the leadership of Ukraine that they would cut off $1 billion in American aid unless they fired the prosecutor that was targeting Burisma. And Joe Biden, he's admitted this on TV. Remember what Joe Biden said? He said, well, son of a bitch, they did. And what at the time Biden insisted is that he didn't know anything about what his son was doing. This New York Post story now suggests that he sat down and met with the oligarch and the business leaders of the company that was paying him off, that if we had anything resembling a functioning press, they should demand of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden that they answer these questions, and they answer them seriously and not just accept their brazen dismissals. Now, the truth of the matter is the press is so in bed with Biden, they just want him to win. They don't really care. They want him to win, and so does big tech, and it's an all-out push right now.
Now, Senator Cruz, I always give both sides of the news. The Democrats are cheered that the U.S. attorney in charge of the unmasking probe retired and no charges were brought. I am myself relieved that he did not issue a Mueller-style, we almost got you report, because I don't believe in that. Either you indict or you don't indict, and he walked away. Does the fact that the unmasking probe was closed tell you anything about your view of the conduct of the Obama White House in the closing days of their presidency?
Look, I don't know the details of what the unmasking probe uncovered. I want to learn more of the details. Presumably, if the investigation closed, they concluded that there was no criminal conduct. Now, there's a difference between criminal conduct and unethical conduct. There can be all sorts of things that are unethical, targeting your political opponents, that don't cross the line into a provable and chargeable felony. So the inference that I take from it is they did not find sufficient evidence of criminality to charge anyone. That doesn't change what we know about how the Obama administration politicized law enforcement and the intelligence community, politicized the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CIA. We know now for a fact that as the Inspector General found, the Department of Justice had 17 material omissions in their submissions to the federal court, the FISA court, including giving to the court a fraudulently altered email that a lawyer on the FBI staff altered and created counterfeit evidence. At a very minimum, I believe that lawyer is going to be prosecuted, and in any other case, they would serve real jail time. But not only that, we now know that the FBI was basing all of this surveillance and targeting of the incoming president on the Steele report, whose primary source was an individual the FBI had been investigating for being essentially a Russian agent, was someone who was trying to recruit senior Obama administration officials to commit espionage. And we also know that in the summer of 2016, in the heat of the campaign, John Brennan, the head of the CIA, went and sat down with Barack Obama and personally briefed the president that the Hillary Clinton campaign had come up with a scheme to try to accuse the Trump campaign of being in bed with Russia. And we know this from Brennan's own notes, that he's admitted, yep, those are my notes, that's what I told the president. So any way you look at it, this stuff stinks. Now, I will say this, Hugh, I think a lot of people, there's so many details that they kind of get tired and your eyes sort of glaze over at Comey, McCabe, Brennan, like hearing all the names, after a while, I think people sort of tune it out. But I don't think we should tune out that Barack Obama and Joe Biden deliberately weaponized law enforcement and the intelligence community to target their political opposition. That is dangerous, and it is utterly inconsistent with centuries of apolitical, honorable enforcement of the law without becoming a political oppo research attack unit.
One vote away is the new book by Senator Ted Cruz about the importance of the Supreme Court, which we've seen on display this week. Senator Cruz, thank you. Good luck getting through the last day and getting to cast a vote for a third consecutive terrific Supreme Court nominee. Thank you, Senator. I want to tell everyone about ReliefFactor.com at this point. There it is. There's the bag. I took it in the first hour. I tell you about it 2 more times. I take it every day, and I'm not going to listen to the hearings today. I went longer than I normally do on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday because I was able to plug in the C-SPAN feed or the NPR feed and uninterrupted listen to the hearings, which was actually a joy for me. It's like watching the Super Bowl for me to listen to Supreme Court conversation. It's basically what I teach, and she taught more about severability than any of my students have ever had to put up with, because I don't teach severability except perhaps in passing for 1 minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes of an hour of, you only get 3 hours a week for 15 weeks. You can't cover everything in con law. And severability doctrine really isn't one of the bigs. It's more of a legislative course. But I nevertheless think a lot more lawyers out there understand severability doctrine today than they ever did before, but it sure didn't do anything about the nomination. Amy Coney Barrett is going to be confirmed, and I'm going to be out walking today and listening to books on tape and back in my normal pattern with ReliefFactor.com powering me forward. And so if you have got minor aches and pains and you'd like support for their temporary relief, try ReliefFactor.com. Tens of thousands of people take it every morning like I do. And I tell you about it 2 more times to remind you about it. Come back. David Cortman, Senior Counsel of the Alliance Defending Freedom, joins me next to talk about that great organization. You can head over to HughHewitt.com, go to the top, give your best gift to Alliance Defending Freedom.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And let me ask you the obvious question. Maybe I'm naive. Why would any party wish to pack the Supreme Court? What would their objective be, Andy?
Well, obviously, it's the same objective that FDR had when he was slapped down by his own party trying to do it back in the New Deal days. And that is in order to convert the tribunal from its last vestige as a judicial institution into a super legislature that basically imposes the political will of the party that packed it. So obviously it's completely political, and it would really destroy our system, Seb, because the framers constructed a system of sort of competitive institutions. So our liberty depends on no one actor getting an accumulation of too much power.
Right.
And part of that is making the Supreme Court a judicial, apolitical institution. That's why it's insulated from the electoral process. If you turn it into a political institution and it's just a proxy of Congress, that throws the whole system at a whack, and you have nothing left to protect minority rights, which I would think would be of interest not only to people on the right, but to people on the left, because, two can play this game, and it never has a happy end.
Yeah, checks and balances would be over. Follow him right now, Andrew C. McCarthy on Twitter.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I want to go back to Pence. I was really genuinely stunned and impressed at his self-control. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because you did not get the impression, which the media sometimes wants to give you, is that he's dull, that he's a dud. You could see the fire within. I think many people saw him as incredibly presidential and thought, my goodness, you could think what you want of Trump, but he picked this guy to replace him if something goes wrong. That's a pretty good pick.
When Trump or Biden are sworn in January of 2021, they will be the oldest president coming into office for a term. 74 or 78 will beat the all-time age limits. And so I think, particularly because of the discussion about whether or not Biden would even complete a term, I think the focus on Kamala Harris being a potential president really put that debate under that kind of.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. All month long, I've been asking you, begging you really, to go to HughHewitt.com and go to the very top of the website to find the ADF banner at the very top, asking you to support the Alliance Defending Freedom. I need you to give $100 or your best gift to the Freedom Fund to help Alliance Defending Freedom continue to fight pivotal court battles out there. And I wanted to illustrate that today by having my friend David Cortman, one of the senior litigators with ADF, join me, along with one of his clients, Kathy Jerman, the executive director of New Hope Family Services. They're both on the line. Good morning, David. Good morning, Kathy. Kathy, can I start with you? Would you tell us what New Hope does?
Sure. Thank you for having me this morning. So New Hope Family Services is a pregnancy resource center and an adoption agency. We're in Syracuse, New York, and we've been an adoption agency for over 55 years. We've placed more than 1,000 children in forever families. And then our pregnancy center also serves the community. We offer free services like pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, options counseling, free baby supplies, parenting classes, all kinds of things that we service the community with.
So, Kathy, what has happened to you in New York?
So New York State basically gave us an ultimatum that said we either had to choose to change our policy, which for our adoption agency is we stand on the Word of God and we will not allow, we won't place babies with same-sex families. So New York State basically said we need to change our policy or we need to choose to shut down. And we're choosing to stand on the Word of God, and we know that that's the right thing to do. So that's where Alliance Defending Freedom came in.
Now, David Cortman, what did ADF do for New Hope Family Services?
So first thing we try to do is obviously work it out with the state, and when Kathy was saying they were given the ultimatum, basically change your religious beliefs or violate them or shut down, we filed the lawsuit. And what's interesting in following this, at the district court level, we lost. The court said, no, there's no violation here, even though they were specifically picking on not only New Hope, but religious adoption agencies to either conform to the new orthodoxy or close down. But then we got a great win up at the Court of Appeals level, and the district court issued an injunction to allow New Hope to place children in homes with a mom and dad. So it's been a great result so far.
So, David, I want to stress, in the state of New York, there are many adoption agencies that will place children with same-sex couples. Am I correct?
Well, it's remarkable. Yes, there's about 130 adoption agencies, the majority of which will. There's a handful that are religious and abide by the core belief. They believe the best interest of the child is to have a mom and a dad. Yet, apparently, according to the state, there's no room for them. Even though they're hurting the children, and less children will be placed, obviously, if you have less agencies, they're still pushing their orthodoxy against these religious groups.
Do the other agencies have their own policies about how to place children, or are they random about anyone coming in the door or getting a baby if they want one?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of them have just completely open door. Anyone can come in. Some of them specialize in specific communities, like Jewish communities or Muslim communities. So it's interesting. A lot of them have their specialties, but the majority of them will place anyone with, any child with any home. So there's no shortage of adoption agencies here. But when you close them down, especially due to this new agenda that's coming on, you're basically limiting the number of kids who are going to be placed in what they call forever homes. And that's where New Hope is coming in doing a great job.
And that's why I want to stress what ADF did. It is not arguing on any other basis than the state of New York may not target a Christian based adoption agencies that places children with mothers and fathers, right? That's your argument. They can't attack a faith-based adoption agency.
That's exactly right. And what's interesting, these adoption agencies have been involved in this service longer than the state has. So, we have clients, across the country who do this. As Kathy said, they've been doing this over 5 decades. They've been involved in this before the state jumped in. And now all of a sudden the state jumps in and wants to change the rules and say, no, if you don't violate your religious beliefs, we're going to shut you down, even though you're placing over 1,000 children. You're doing great work. And that's the problem here. Not changing what anybody else does, just not forcing the religious groups to violate their beliefs.
Kathy Jerman, if ADF hadn't shown up, could you have afforded the legal bills to defend your adoption agency?
No, absolutely not. There's no way that we could have continued our ministry. So we're so grateful for them.
And how many children have been adopted from New Hope this year?
We have about 2 placements is all right now, and we have another 2 that are in our foster care system, and then we have a couple more birth moms that are ready to deliver in the next month. So we've slowed down definitely since the court case has started, but we're still getting lots of referrals for birth moms, and that's why this injunction was so great, is now that it allows us to actually start taking applications from new adoptive couples, which is great because our list of approved couples is dwindling. So if they hadn't given us this injunction, who knows what would happen.
Well, God bless your efforts in finding homes for children that need them. And David Cortman, good luck in your efforts to keep her protected if this case continues. I call on the audience to invest $100 in the Freedom Fund that supports ADF, supporting people like the New Hope Family Services Adoption Agency of New York. They'll defend every adoption agency following religious beliefs. They'll also defend free speech. They will do whatever needs to be done to support religious liberty and free speech in America. Please donate $100 to the Freedom Fund, or your best gift, You can call them at 866-359-9644. Alliance Defending Freedom has long sponsored this show, and I've long supported them. So go to HughHewitt.com. If you can't remember, go to the very top of the website, hit that banner, support the ADF, and be back tomorrow for the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Alliance Defending Freedom.